waiting for you. So
sorry, guys.
Great afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to come and spend the afternoon with us. We really hope to sort of excite your socks off and wow you with some really nice stuff that we want to show you. We're going to just jump through to the agenda quickly, just to go through the high-level things. So just very quickly, we're going to have an introduction from Anton. So Anton and Ben will be joining us online as well. Amy will also be joining us and doing some live demos for us. Then we're going to go really focus around the software. We're going to focus around version 5. We spend a lot of time on that. Then we will have a break. Just after the break, we will then go into raising the bar. We'll discuss a lot of the stuff we're doing internally. And then we'll finish off with the roadmap and a customer testimonial from Lawrence that's joined us from ARF as well. So we've got some words from him that he'd like to share with us. And that's pretty much from my side. Everybody knows where the toilets are, where the snacks are. There's a tin coffee station as well. We've got some Honeywell kits set up. We've also got the time from Honeywell that has joined us today. So any questions on the Honeywell kits, we will be covering. And from the break, we'll be having a voice over IP live demo as well, in the warehouse room as well, where the snacks were served. So we will be having that running with any questions around that. Great, we'll kick it off. Thank you very much. Handing over to Anton.
Hi, everybody. For those who know me, nice to see you again. For many of the faces that came into that room, I don't know you, but I'm Anton. This is Ben next to me here, and we obviously directors of the business. We're based in the United States at the moment. And I just want to kick off this session with a couple of slides. So, Adrian, if you can maybe just move the slide on a bit. And again. Right, so I just wanted to touch a little bit on DATASCOPE as a company. I mean, we've been in business for 18 years. We started in South Africa. We're still very much a South African type of business. Our background was in the Syspro space for many years. I started working with Syspro still in the days where it was Impact Award back in 1998. So I've been working with Syspro for many years. And we kind of grew the business up out of Port Elizabeth, opened an office in Johannesburg, focused on the warehousing software. And then as we kind of grew the business in South Africa, we got a lot of leads coming through to us from the United States and Canada. And we've kind of moved into that market as well. And more recently into Australia as well. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of kind of where we are now. The growth for us, be quite open, it's been quite challenging. It's quite a thing to go from a South African company and expand into the North American market. It's come with its challenges, but I think we've done pretty well. And I'll show you in some of the slides how the growth has gone. We're in a far better position than we were a couple of years back. And it's good. The growth is good, and the effect that it will have on all our clients is ultimately it's a good effect. So, Adrian, if you can move on from there. Right. So this map just gives us a little bit of a view of what the resource layout looks like now. If you look at South Africa, we've got the 2 offices. All the development still takes place in Port Elizabeth, so that's our development office. All the development happens there, the documentation, and so on. We've got our Johannesburg office, obviously, that you're aware of, the office that you're in, and we've got quite a number of resources there. Had some staff turnover, and Terry will talk about that a little bit later. And we on quite an aggressive push to bring on a few more resources, key resources there. And then if you look at the growth, we've got in the North American market, you can kind of see the 2 red dots there are 2 offices, one in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the other one in Toronto, where Amy's based. You'll see Amy will be chatting to you just now. She's out of Toronto. And then we have 3 partners that we're working with in the United States, one called Logi Solutions, one called BT Partners or BTP, and a new one that we're busy setting up at the moment called Foremost ERP. So the overall landscape shows us that we've got a lot more people kind of in the whole scheme of things. Sure, they're across the world, but we're on an aggressive drive to build additional resource across the world to actually support and implement our software. But one little resource all the way down in New Zealand, that's one of our developers. They, as a family, they made the decision to move into New Zealand. She still works for us on a full-time basis, and obviously she does development from there. So quite a wide range here. Adrian, just go on to one more slide there. Okay. These green dots indicate our growth path over the next 5 years, and these are essentially partners. So we are in the process of building additional partners. Our immediate focus is on the North American market. So you can see there one in Dallas, one in Los Angeles, one somewhere between San Francisco and Portland, Seattle. We'll put one in there, and then one up in Vancouver. From there into Australia and Singapore, and the last area that we're going to focus on is the UK. There is a nice CISPRO market in the UK, but it's a difficult market. The areas that are particularly looking for warehousing solutions is South Africa is still very active in that market, United States and Canada, and then just to a slightly lesser extent, Australia. Right, let's move on. Right, so how do we do this? I think just to spend a few minutes on, how do we run a company where you've got some developers in New Zealand, you've got a tester that sits in Kentucky, United States, you've got our office in Charlotte, we've got the office in Johannesburg, we've got a development office in Port Elizabeth, we've got a focused resource in Toronto. How does one run a business like this? And it comes down to technology. If you went back 10 years ago, this would have been impossible. You could not run a business like this. And one of the key elements of the technology is the technology which we're actually using now. It's called Zoom. It's a video conference tool. It works exceptionally well, and we use it extensively within our business. So I want to hone on this because it's important that you understand how the business is running. A lot of guys in South Africa have raised some concerns and kind of said, look, Anton's left South Africa, and so is Ben. Now you're not involved in the business anymore, and we're kind of dealing with somebody in Joburg. That's not true at all. We are highly involved in the business. And I want to just give you some idea of some of the meetings that are taking place on a daily basis between all of us. So I've got a little list of them here. We have a Monday meeting every single Monday. The whole team is there except for New Zealand because it's the middle of the night. But for the rest of us, North America and for the North America side and South Africa, we're all together. We review how we look. We look at the support boards. We look at the any support call that's become a problem. So that's every single Monday. We are actively involved in projects. I've just run a project at Johnson. Just to give you an example, I was the project manager. Johnson is on the R21. I ran that entire project from here using Zoom with a Zoom kit in both their Durban operation and their Johannesburg operation. So involved in projects. I'm involved in the project at Fresenius Kabi at the moment, which Terry is running, but I stand in from time to time into that meeting. So we're involved in projects. On the day-to-day operations side, we have regular discussions on support, any issue around support or some challenge in the software or some new functionality that needs to be looked at. those meetings happen. To give you an idea, all of the any new function that goes into the software normally comes past me. Myself and Amy work on it. We agree what it should do. We agree how it must be built. We do the specification. Amy then hands that across to the development team, and Amy's involved in daily stand-up development meetings with the development team in Port Elizabeth every single day. And then in terms of support in Johannesburg, Amy is involved supporting Tiffany with the team there. And all of this is made possible through Zoom. So just want to get that clear that we're using Zoom extensively. In the United States, the distances, or in North America actually, the distances are such that we can't fly to every single site all the time. It's too expensive. We use Zoom extensively here, even for the projects running here. So many of the projects, a resource or two will go to site, or a local partner will go to site, and we'll have a weekly meeting. And in that weekly meeting, I'll be there, or Ben will be there in that meeting, overseeing the project, making sure that the project gets delivered accurately and so on. So in the United States, part of the deal is any site that selects DATASCOPE to implement DATASCOPE, actually one of the conditions is you put in a Zoom kit, and you have a full Zoom kit, like the one you're seeing in the Joburg office, for us to manage projects and give support, which is great. Let's move on, Adrian. Okay, so there's a couple of little different photographs appearing here. It's just really pushing the point that this is becoming normal. It's certainly in the United States, and because of the distances, it's becoming more and more regular that multi-site operations run with Zoom kits between them. Zoom's used by companies like Solar City, Tesla, SpaceX, that whole group, and many others. Big GoDaddy is another one. Because of the ability to interact with each other. Video conferencing got a very bad name many years back. If you go back about 10 years ago, it was very expensive. It didn't work very well. That's completely changed in today's world. All right, let's move on. Okay, so this is just a little bit of humor here. So this is our team kind of working together. It's one of the development and test discussions. You can see Amy there from Toronto laughing her head off. Stephen working from home. A few of the developers in the Port Elizabeth office, and our tester who's in Kentucky somehow managed to get himself onto the call twice. And the joke was really about it would be great to have two testers just cloned over there. Unfortunately, we've just got one, but it would be good to get Javen twice. So yeah, a little bit of a humor, but that's typically how a meeting would look. That's happening between us and within the business itself. Okay. Again, yeah. Okay, just to talk a little bit about revenue and the growth. The blue lines there is essentially revenue within the DATASCOPE business in South Africa. So this is going back from 2008, what our revenue looked like. You can see a nice growth going up into kind of 2012, 2013, and so on. It's flatlined a little bit in South Africa, which we intend to turn around, and Terry's already bringing that on board. And then in the last 3 years, there's been a bit of a focus into North America. The red revenue there indicates revenue that's generated within our operation in North America. And the green represents additional revenue that doesn't come to us. It actually goes to our partners within the North American market. But the overall picture is really just showing that the product is growing well, it's selling well, the overall revenue structures generated from DATASCOPE WMS is actually increasing, which is great. And that's good for you guys to understand that, because obviously the more this product grows, the more we can push back into the development of the product, and the better for all of us. I just want to share that with you. Adrian? Okay. over to Stephen. I'll be presenting one or two things a little bit later. Guys, just one other thing. Let's keep it fairly interactive. I know it's difficult to talk to somebody on a screen, but don't feel shy to ask a question along the way. We'll stop, we address it, and we can move on. Okay.
Okay, so first of all, just to introduce myself, for those who don't know me, so I'm Stephen. I head up the development department down at PE. So I work closely with Amy and the dev team to make sure that we can deliver the product that we've got at the moment. So what I'm going to do today is just run through some of the software. So my section is quite long, it's about an hour. But hopefully we'll be switching between the presentation and the software, so hopefully you won't get too bored. But I'm going to start with a bit of a wow factor, I'm hoping. In the past, we've always had a try to have an interesting item that we present to you guys. Something I remember in the past, we did a Google Glass application, which was quite nice. And today we're going to be introducing version 5 of the software. So there's a lot of aspects around version 5, but the biggest element of it is tying it in with HTML5. So for those of you who don't know HTML5, basically it's a language and it's web pages that you can develop web applications and websites. So you can just distinguish between websites and web applications. So HTML5 gives us the ability to write rich applications that actually run within your browser. So an example of an HTML5 application which you might not know exists is TeamViewer. Anyone's used TeamViewer, but that's actually an HTML5 application with a native application. So you download an application, but it's actually just hosting a web application inside that. So our WS version 5 is going to be cloud ready. So what I'd like to touch on first is what that means before I go into WS version 5. So what is cloud ready? I already touched on what it could be. It can be a thin client or it can be a web application. So if it's a thin client, you'll download the application and it will run on your local machine. And it's essentially just hosting the website inside the application. Or you can actually run it straight through your browser. So if you run it from a browser like Google Chrome, you can run it in there and it interacts like it's on your desktop. And the advantage of HTML5 is very rich. So it gives us a lot of abilities to interact with the device, like scans, etc. So those are the two options. Just to touch on the benefits of cloud computing. Obviously, the solution is hosted in the cloud, and you access it through your WAN or your internet connection. So some of the benefits that I've got on the right here is cost. So you don't need to have an internal, you don't have an on-site installations of servers. You don't have to have as much IT infrastructure in place. You essentially just need a workstation and an internet connection. And then reliability, scalability. We've been doing a lot of work with Microsoft Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud solution, which can host many different things like SQL Server, applications, websites, a lot of different elements, including virtual machines. Their reliability, I think, sits at 99.999%. So uptime, obviously, it depends on your internet connection. You need to have a stable internet connection. But these days, even in South Africa, we can get that right. Scalability is a big point because you can basically take your solution. If you want to bring a new branch online, you can just add the specs on your machine in your virtual environment and literally put in a couple of workstations and internet connections and run it. But typically in the past, you have to set up servers, virtual servers, and those servers obviously got a set lifespan and use them, etc. Come back to cost. So overall, the cloud solution definitely is the way forward and the way everything is going. So what we're saying is WS version 5 is going to be cloud ready. So we're not saying it will totally utterly run in the cloud, but it's our first step to introducing the cloud ready piece of software. And I'll touch on it in the next slide. Just an interesting point to note, currently all of my developers in PE can work at home. They have no dependence on any servers in our DATASCOPE infrastructure. So from the DATASCOPE perspective, their email, our TFS, our source control environment, our servers, everything is hosted in the cloud. So when you saw there, I was working at home, I often work and other developers like the we're seeing in New Zealand is operating clearly without any hardware introduction. It's just got a laptop. So that's an example of it. It's a bit different to the warehousing, but it's the concept. Okay, so the next slide, just our approach to how we're doing this. We've gone the route of a web-based application, and on the right-hand side, I've just got a screen number of it. I'll go into more detail just now. It's a web application, not a website. And it's built in, what we've done is, when we went for version 5, there were two key things we needed to do. The first was to be able to run in the cloud, and the second was to be able to build a solution that you can customize. Because what we've found over the last 8 years that we've been building this product is we're building on top of our existing logic, which is fine, but in the end, you end up with a very complex solution that's difficult to manage. So with this model, what we've done is we've scaled it back slightly. So we've got the same functionality that we currently have in the software on the mobile application and on the PC. However, it's replicable. In other words, I can take a bin transfer and I can copy it away, change it however I want, and push it back into the software with no upgrades or no changing to the system. So you can copy and replicate those streams, and you can then customize them as you need. So you can make changes to them. And when I say you don't need an upgrade or anything, it runs in HTML5, so it's literally one little HTML page that you need to change. And that can be done from within the interface. You don't need a developer to go and do that. You take the screen and say, well, I want to take a bin transfer where you scan a tracking ID and you move it into a specific bin. I want to make a quality put away. So I don't want to always have to scan the destination bin because this is a quality put away. I can open a bin transfer, copy it, say the destination bin will always be this, remove it from the screen and save it as quality. And then the guys, when they open the quality application, they'll scan the bin, upload the tracking ID, and immediately just hit post. So they won't need to scan that destination bin. So that's the type of customizations that we're going with. And that's what I mean by the component architecture. They're built in these little components that we can put together. And then the other amazing element I need to touch on is this solution has actually been in the pipeline for the last more than a year. And what we've been developing is the SDK. We've been developing a software development kit. That's what SDK stands for. It's essentially, those of you know Syspro, it's a business object layer. It's the same interface layer that Syspro's got, and it allows you to do transactions based on specific rules. And we had to build that so that we can build this on top of that framework. And to show how powerful that SDK is, this entire web application runs on that SDK and has been built by a relatively new developer to us without any prior knowledge to WS. So he's been able to build that just because the rules and the business logic is inside that kit. And then, as I said, version 5 is not going to be a full-blown run in the cloud solution. We are migrating it in steps, and our very first point of call is going to be the mobile application. For those of you who know, we run on Windows Mobile, which according to Microsoft is dead. It's not supported anymore, so we need to move on from that. The idea here is to migrate all of our mobile applications into this portal. It's good to note that we're not going to totally eliminate the existing scanner application. That will remain in the system, but we'll be moving over to the mobile stuff first. And then just some other changes on version 5. We've also restructured the menu, so we've done a revamp on the existing application, the application menu, and we've bumped up the look and feel slightly to make it feel it's just a bit more a rich application. Looks a bit better, more modernized. Just sit down quickly because I'm going to run through a couple of slides here. But I'd like to show you just some pictures that I pulled up of WNET's version 1 from some time back. This is version 1 of the login screen. And then I've got the HTML5, the new version 5 there on the right. Peer receiving, so this is a peer receipt screen back in version 1 with the Outdoors logo at the top and the original DATASCOPE branding. You can see how things have changed quite a lot. The idea here is just to show you that we haven't bumped our versions very often, but the functionality that we provide has changed a lot, and the look and feel of the software has changed a lot. This is the existing menu structure and our revamped version 5. So what we've done is we've restructured the menu to make it more logical. We've also introduced our mobile HTML5 icons. So the icons that are used in this menu is actually what you'll see they're coming through in the web application. And then the final one is our mobile scanner. That's the mobile scanner application, and then this is the new HTML5 screen. So you can see quite a big difference there, and this is hosted on Azure at the moment, which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. But quite a lot of look and feel changes, and also the scalability of this application, which I'm going to show you, is a lot better now. Even with the old original DATASCOPE logo. Okay, I'm now up to a quick demo. So again, to emphasize the whole hosted solution, I'm working on the Azure virtual machine at the moment. So this is hosted, not hosted here. Just want to get across to my web page first. So we've got an application running in the cloud. So this address at the top here is our Azure virtual machine. So this is the new front end where I'm going to log into the HTML5 front end. And out of interest, on the slides, when I go back, there's a QR code that you can scan on your phone if you've got a QR reader. You scan that, it'll take you straight into the login page on the Azure web portal. So once you're logged in, how it works is we've basically got the menu at the top, and then we've introduced the splash screen, which we can customize per operator. So as you log in, you can give the operators a nice dashboard. And you can customize these graphs per operator. I'm not going to steal Amy's thunder. She's going to go into a lot of the detail of these graphs later. But the graphs that she does, it's good to know that you can pop those onto a splash screen. So if you're a manager, you can get a nice overall view. If you're an inventory controller, you can put up some inventory stats and then so it's a nice landing page for them to go into. And these graphs are sort of interactive. So if you move over them, you can get data. You can see the information flowing through. The menu structure is very similar to the existing structure. We're going to introduce the different modules going across the top, and then with some admin functions on the right. So that's all fine, and I'm running it in the browser now. So I've got a device here as well, which is running on Android. However, the application obviously is running in the web browser. So any device with an HTML5 compatible browser can run the application. So I'm going to fire this up, and you can see it running on the device. It looks slightly different on the device because the application adjusts based on the real estate that's available. Right, so you're seeing a remote connection now to the device. And if I open up my browser, that's the exact same window that we're seeing in my browser. And if you tilt to the center, you see the gaps to your scanning screen. Log in here, menu. So again, the dashboard comes up. It looks slightly different now because it knows that I'm on a mobile device and the real estate is a bit less. Also, you'll see we get what's called the hamburger menu at the top. So it's our standard HTML5 menu. And that's the transfer application that just opened up, but the menu operates in a very similar fashion, just in the hamburger style. And then also, what you can do is you can, if I log in here, you'll see there's when I spoke earlier about the local thin client versus a web browser. What we're looking at right now is in the web browser, but if you do go to the bottom of the application, you'll see there's a download. You can actually download the APK, which is a thin client that sits will then install natively on the device. The nice thing is got logo and we go in there. It's essentially the same thing. The only difference is you don't have the address bar at the top. So it's just running within that application. And then I just want to hop through to the original system so we can have a look at some of the other changes. Some of you might have already seen the new menu structure. Obviously, the splash screen has changed with the look and feel for version 5. So the menu on the right, on the left, is has changed from an icon perspective, but more importantly, it's been restructured from a module perspective. So we restructured that, and the reason we did that is to match up with our SDK. So in Syspro, for example, your business objects relate directly to your menu structure. So to make it easier for our third-party guys that interact with the software, we've introduced, we've mapped those together so that they are one and the same. So the guys using the business objects know where modules are on the system. So that's just the main changes on here. We are also doing quite a big look and feel revamp on this application. Although the changes are moving over into the HTML5 system. And then I spoke earlier about the components, just to hop back to the application on the web browser. I showed you bin transfer here, so that's a bin-to-bin application. You see that it operates slightly differently to the scanner, in the fact that we've got labels down the front with no bit more real estate. So that's based on what you're looking at. But the component element, there's a menu here called custom, and you'll see there's a custom bin transfer. So what I did is I just copied the bin transfer application and I popped it in there, and immediately it becomes available in the custom menu. And how that works in the background, it's simply a single file that gets copied and can be manipulated. And that can be done from the front end. Yeah, it gives a number of options to change the pages, go into design mode, etc. And that allows you to, for example, take this bin field and remove it all together. So I can take the bin field and take it off the screen and save that. And then the operators can use that without having to worry about that specifically. So the customization element is one of the biggest drivers other than the web-based application. Okay, that kind of concludes my section on the HTML5. So the idea here is we're going to be doing this over as fast as we can. Our timeline at the moment is to get a full scanner solution migrated by the year end. So the full functionality currently available on the scanner will be replicated onto this solution. So you can look forward to using it. Obviously, we need to look at the devices because they need to have an actual file compatible device. But at the moment, we're going to have both solutions. So we could go route of slowly migrating over your devices one by one, or do a big bang approach. So change over, but that's the timeline at the moment. Stephen? Yes?
Could you just touch on Windows end of life and Android?
Sorry, Windows?
The Windows end of life and the fact that we have to move to an Android platform anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, from the devices perspective, the Windows Mobile, as I said, has already been discontinued by Microsoft. Our developers at the moment have to work on an old version of our development environment just to be able to keep it up to date. So that has been discontinued, and all of the providers, Honeywell, SiteLab, the whole lot, they're all moving away from having devices running Windows Mobile, and they all come up with Android. I think most of these devices on the table here are all running on Android. Yeah. So that's just an indication of how quickly the change is coming. So we're going to have to. That's why we need to get our solution up and running as quickly as we can.
Just also on the Windows platform, just so everyone is comfortable, we'll still continue to support the Windows platform for another 3 years, starting from next year. So in January, we plan to release the first Android version, which is HTML5 based, but for the next 3 years, we'll still support the Windows version. But thereafter, your physical kit's going to have to change. Ultimately, you're going to have to run out your Windows devices, and you're going to have to replace your devices with Android-based devices.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. So that's the exciting news. Right, now I'm going to move over to some of the elements in the software which we like to showcase that I feel are give you a good flexibility of the software. So one of the biggest drivers probably in the last year and a half has been to get the software to a position where we can allow you as the customer to customize the software, tailor the software so that you can do what you need it to do rather than us having to change the software to suit what you need. So the number of the elements I'm going to touch on now are the they're driven by that whole drive. So the first one is VB scripting. Looking at tailoring the software from a VB script perspective. This is nothing new to us. However, there's a number of elements here which we've improved, and I'd like to just touch on them. So first of all, VB scripting allows you to tailor the software to make small changes that allow you to do specific things that you need to do that not necessarily make sense to the software in general. And also they don't require upgrades, and also they upgrade safe, so you can keep that functionality running. So the first point is we've introduced a number of the screens. We've rolled out a lot more of the screens. In the past, we've only had one or two. But as far as my understanding is now, almost all of the screens on the PC front end support VB scripting, or a few of the setup screens, which don't really make sense yet. We will do them, but they're not mission critical. So most of the system-based screens are done. And you can tell that they're done by a little icon in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, so the little VB script icon, which means that the buttons, the text fields, and the grids allow you to script. And I'm going to give you a demonstration of some of that stuff working practically in some practical examples. One of the interesting things, or one of the good things we've changed is that's the last point there, is the before and after events. So in the past, on a button, you could click a button and you could run something. But there was not that you couldn't interact with the existing WMS functionality. In other words, it would run the script and then carry on working. Whereas now you can actually do what I call like a hamburger. WMS is the patty in the middle, and you put scripting on the top and the bottom. So you can put the bread on the top or the bottom, depending on how you want to do it. And if you put it on the before, you can block them from continuing a process. In other words, if you've got a button on the screen that you don't want the guys to click on, so you want them to, you want to stop them from clicking on that, and we don't have a permission to stop you from doing that because it doesn't make sense. But in your environment, it makes sense. You can put a script on that and say when they click it, it can cancel that event or give them a message saying, sorry, you don't have permission. So you can stop guys from clicking on buttons and running functionality like that. So that's kind of just one of the small subtle things we've done, but it gives you a lot more power with the VB scripts. So I'll just show you some examples which I set up on the demo box. I'm hopping to just want to log into my name. So if I hop into job receipts, what I've done is I've put a number of scripts on here, and I'll run through them as we go. The first one that I've done is I've customized the quantity field, and I've put in a VB script to ask me for, in this case, length, width, and height, just to do a small calculation of volume. Because it's an interesting thing, but a lot of our customers have used this VB scripting on this specific field because they've got some sort of calculation that they do that they need to calculate how much is being received based on some other numbers. So there's some formula that they need to apply based on some input. So in this case, it's very simple. I mean, I can put in 10, 5, and it calculates it and it will pop the value into the quantity field. So it's relatively simple, but it gives you the functionality there that you can script that field. Then another one that I did was some validation. So what I've done is I put a script on that said, should I try and allocate a pallet? And I have not received the factor of the pan size. It won't allow me to allocate the pallet. So if I hit allocate normally, the pan size here is 5. It goes straight into the allocation screen, which is fine. But if I change this, change it to 251, and I click allocate, I get a message that tells me it's not visible by the pan size, and it also highlights the field. So the couple of things there I want to do to explain. First is you can highlight the field, so you can interact with the screen. You can change color, you can change font, you can disable, enable, set values, whatever you want. Second of all, you can pop up messages. And third, which is quite critical, is the one where I've stopped them from allocating. I actually can't allocate because it didn't carry on the process. So I said if it isn't, we can't continue. So I'm stopping that button from doing its original logic. So, for example, on the finalize, I can put scripts in the finalize and say, okay, I want to do some logic before we do the receipt. Once the receipt's been processed, then I want to do something else. So if you wanted to print a label, but you only want to print it after it's successful receipt, you put it on the after event. So you can really go to town with this. You can solve or tailor any specific scenario you might have. You can go to town. It's very powerful and underused in the software. As I say, a lot of guys, I demonstrate this screen because a lot of guys are using it on this specific screen. I also know that we've used it on a lot of checkout screens. We did a project in the US where we integrated with third-party logistics to do their shipping. And on the checkout screens, we interact with their shipping providers to do costing calculations, allow them to receive, to check out or not check out a shipment based on costing, etc. So there's quite a lot of levels like integration into a third party using these scripts. You can also query fire up third-party applications. So if you wanted to do some fancy logic and run an application, you could run a third-party application from here. And then also, you could interact with our business objects through those lead scripts. So you could do, we've done a couple of scenarios where we've allocated purchase orders based on an Excel spreadsheet. So quite a lot you can do with lead scripting. No one's any questions on that? Oh, good. Okay, the next one I want to touch on is what we call our plugin architecture. And again, this is a focus on customization and tailoring the system. So what we've identified over the past is we've again had cases where we've developed logical components in the software that have been repetitive. And we have to change it over and over and over and over again, building on top of each other. So we keep building it up, but again, it gets complicated, and to manage that is quite difficult. And also, we can't always native with the scenarios. Plus, the customer needs to log a request, we need to do an enhancement, we need to get an upgrade. We're trying to get rid of that. So what the plugin architecture gives you is the ability to tailor the software again in specific areas. It doesn't require upgrades, and I'm going to show you now in the demo. It's actually real time. You can swap out plugins in the software without even shutting down the system at all. So some of the areas which make sense to plugins that we've implemented in would be pallet import. So a lot of guys on LCT receipts, they get a shipment of stock. It's a huge amount of pallets that need to be set up. So operators go and manually capture all those pallets. But they get an email with an Excel spreadsheet that tells them exactly what's coming and exactly how the pallets are built up. So what we've done is we put a pallet import there, which you can go and suck in the spreadsheet, and it auto allocates everything based on the spreadsheet. So that plugin, currently we've got that in core products that ships with that plugin that you can put in the spreadsheet, provide the spreadsheets in a specific format. However, you can take that plugin and you can change it. Auto reservation, a big one for us, where you allocate in stock for sales orders and jobs. So you want to do a specific allocation, you want to get stock from bulk, and then from big place and then bulk. Those reservation rules, those of you know the software, there's about 13 static rules, and we start building it at 13 with all this in. So you can now customize those rules as you want, plug them in. And that's the demo I'm going to show you now. And then scale integration, very logical one. We've got these scales at mass check where they all have different, they're all different hardware, they're all different manufacturers. We were trying to develop an application that would adapt to all of them. You simply can't do that. You can't, it's just not viable. So we introduced plugins there. So you can go and write the plugin, dump it in, it will work for that specific scale. And if you change the scale, you can just change the plugin. You don't need to do an upgrade, then you can change the software. And then finally, LSP integration. Elias would know about this. The LSPs, we've got RAM, RTT, there's a whole bunch. We originally integrated with all of them. So we had a service for RAM, a service for RTT, and then we had different customers wanting to send different information depending on how they pick, etc. So it got very complex. So we totally put that on its head, and we have now got this plugin architecture which allows you to customize that and they can suck the information that we need out of the system. So again, no upgrades, no changes to the software. So that's the biggest advantage of all of these things. So just to show you some of it. So what I'm going to show you is auto reservation. So the first thing I need to do is I'm just going to quickly set up a plugin. So under the system setup, the menu item here, plugin configuration. Okay. I'll drop down these. This is the list of plugins that are available. And the one we're going to work with is sales order sales order allocation, auto reservation. So we'll call this customer name. Okay. And then what I've done is in the background, on the WS server, what we've got is there's a folder that the plugins get placed into. So it's literally a little DLL. It's called the Dynamic Link Library. If you're a developer, you know what that means. Basically, that contains a bunch of code which interacts with the system. So you would get this DLL built, however you need to have it, whatever logic needs to apply, go into the DLL. Save that. Once it's saved, if we go to warehouse settings, and it's warehouse G, if we scroll down, so under picking sales allocation, there's an auto reservation rule. And if we look at this, these are the 13 rules I was speaking of. And once you set a plugin up, it comes up as an available setting under your warehouse settings. So you can add multiple of these plugins and you can customize them to a warehouse. So you could have 5 different rules and they could then be applied to 5 different warehouses. So it's quite flexible. And we set that. And that's pretty much the configuration complete. So I just need to make sure I'm in G, which I am. If I get to sales allocation, sales order, I'm going to just hit auto reserve. And you also see in the newer versions, we've introduced at the bottom here, we've got the rule that you're running. It's indicated at the bottom of the screen, so you know what rule is being applied. I'm going to clear my reservations quickly. Auto reserve this. Now I've got 2 different plugins to show you. The first one is reserves only from bulk, and the second one reserves pack sizes from pick phase and the remainder from bulk. I'm not sure which one is configured at the moment. We'll soon find out. So I've reserved it. The lines are green. You have a look. This one is reserved. Okay, so this one's reserved 10 units from pick phase. So this is a pick phase pallet. It's reserved 10 units, and the pack size is 2. So that was divisible by the pack size. The second line. This one is reserved 3 units from pick phase, and the remaining 2 from bulk because its pack size is 3. We need 5 units. And then finally, the last one, I think that one just reserves, the pack size is 4, we only need 3, so it's taking it from bulk. So the rule that's running currently is packs from pick phase, the remainder from bulk. Now, we just go back to the plugins. I'm going to take the bulk only one, copy that over. I'm not even going to shut down the software. I need to. It's auto reserved now, and it's now going to apply that new rule, all that new logic. So now it should have reserved all the lines from bulk. The first line originally was from pick phase, it's now from bulk. So now see they're all reserving from bulk only. So the idea is to show, the whole point of the demo here is just to show you how quickly you can manipulate the software by just copying a little file in it. And those files, those DLLs are based on our business objects. So those files are using the business objects to create applications to run.
Can I jump in, Stephen?
Sure.
Just so the guys are aware, one of the projects we're running at the moment, their reservation, the rules around their reservation are different by customer type. They're in the medical industry, and if they're selling to the Gauteng government, they have to reserve stock with a single lot, so they're not allowed to sell across 2 different lots, and they have to use a different method where some of the customers use a LIFO basis, so you must reserve stock on a straight last in first out basis. Other ones use a first in first out basis, and then some of them use a more complex situation. Because we can customize these things now, we can write whatever we like in there. So we can go into that new site and we can say, if it's this customer or this customer group, then apply this logic and reserve it in this way. Yet, if it's that customer or that customer group, reserve it completely differently. It makes it extremely powerful, because in the past, we would have to build a new rule and deploy it as a standard piece of software. Now, you can take whatever rule that company wants, they can change it along the way, and we can actually change it in the script, reapply it onto the site, no upgrade, no change to the software essentially, and immediately you're reserving and you've got a completely different rule applicable, and possibly a different set of rules depending on different customers or different certain circumstances that are put into the actual script itself.
Right. Okay. The next one we're going to touch on is what we call fixed splitting by bin visits. So what we identified is a lot of the time we have picks being released. It's a huge amount of lines, and it's all dumped into one operator to go and pick those lines. So it's a relatively simple concept, but it's quite powerful in what you can do with it. So what we've done is you can set up how many bin splits you want. And what the system will do is it'll run through the picking slips. So the image here is to indicate the top one is how typically we release one picking slip with all these lines. With the splitting switched on, depending on the number of splits you want and the number of bin visits you want per operator, because each operator will get a picking slip. So what it does is it takes that picking slip and it splits it up by the bin, the number of bin visits that operator wants, or that you want per operator. And when you release the picking slip, it will release those as multiple individual picking slips. So individual jobs that can get picked individually, obviously shipped and invoiced based on sales order. So it's all for one sales order. That is basically taking that picking slip, breaking it up into pieces, multiple entities that each of those guys can do. So you can split the workload a lot easier. So you can essentially the volume in the warehouse. It's huge picks and these tiny picks, and your pickers, one picker is spending an hour on one pick, another picker is spending 5 minutes. This will try and level that a bit so you can equal out that or spread out that workload. So really simple concept there. And then the next one, which there's no name for it, but I'm trying to talk through it, is our directed replenishment. So for those of you who have run replenishment in the past, replenishment has been quite difficult to manage, in the fact that how it worked in the past, and it's that part of the system still exists, is there's a service that runs. It says, okay, what's the demand on the warehouse in your big face area? Okay, you need to bring down this list of stock, and the list might be, say, 5,000 lines. On the scanner that the guy does that's going to fetch the stock, he just has a list of 5,000 items. So what's important, what's not? You don't know what's critical that he needs to go and fetch. Over and above that, when he picks an item, he can only take it from one location in bulk. You can't go and select multiple bulk pallets. There's a limitation there. And also, when he goes and fetches it, he's selecting an item. So you'll go to, say, aisle A and fetch it. Then he goes to the screen, refreshes, and goes back to the next one. Then he goes to aisle Z, walking up and down, back and forth. So there's no optimization there. He's fetching the list, but it's quite tricky. So what we've done is we've taken picking and we've built, essentially used the concept of picking and built it into replenishment. So what you can do is you can release picking slips. That is a set of tasks for the replenishment list, but it's consolidated together as a little unit, and it's optimized. So first of all, you can go and fetch from multiple locations. So we solved that problem where you can't, as soon as you fetch from one pallet, you have to refresh it, wait for the replenishment calculation to rerun, and go and fetch some more, wait for it to rerun, fetch some more. So it was quite clunky before, but now you can go fetch from multiple places and get the full requirement in one shot. Multiple source recognizers I'm talking about. Picks onto a picking pallet, same concept. So in the past, you have to label the trolley. You have these trolley labels that we all pick onto. Whereas now it's just picked to the picking stuff. And then also one of the advantages is we've introduced a custom rule. So you can go and do custom fetch logic for bulk location. So you can customize how you want to go fetch, how you want to optimize that fetch task. And then I think, as I mentioned, the optimization is the biggest issue here. We can optimize both the fetch and the put away. So both sides of the transaction get optimized. And then again, the topic I spoke of earlier, which was the previous slide on the bin splitting, you can also take those 50 slips and then level them up, split them to a set number of bins per operator. So a lot of optimization here, and I think it's very nice in the fact that it comes through on picking slip review, so you can see who's picking what. It's a lot more manageable. And obviously, there's also statistics come through on how your replenishers are doing. In the past, it was just how much stock did they move. Now you can see how many picking slips they did. And it's also on the picking slip review screen, you can see who's doing what, and assigning those things to them, so they're taking ownership of them. So those are two items that I didn't touch on. Okay. There's no questions from anyone yet. Okay. The next one is voice picking. So I want to have a look at what we've done with voice picking. A lot of you will know that we obviously have two of our big customers, ASCO and Johnson, both run our voice picking module. And it's been around for a little bit, but I just want to introduce voice picking for those of you who maybe don't understand it or haven't heard of it. So there's a couple of elements. Voice picking hardware. You'll see Rudolph's going to demonstrate show you a little demo on voice picking in the warehouse room, where you'll see these two devices are on screen here, the A730 and the headset. So that's the hardware that we use, Vocalec Voice. So we partnered with Vocalec Voice a couple of years back. And that's the hardware we use. And then software, they have their own software that runs on that. What we did is we've built an interface layer between Vocalec Voice and our WMS system. What that layer does, it allows you to take an whole text in WMS and pick them on the voice system. Some people think, oh, it's a voice system, it's not going to be very accurate. Siri on my phone is useful, it doesn't understand me. But there's a big difference between this system and what your Siri or iPhone uses. And the difference is, this is voice association and not voice recognition. So what it does is it associates a vocabulary word with what you say. So when you start with the system, you have to train it. So it says, it'll ask you multiple words to repeat. So if you want to say ready, you have to say ready. It does it 3 times and records your voice and associates that with ready, rather than trying to understand what you were saying. So the accuracy is unbelievable. It's very accurate. And it seldom gets it wrong. Plus it's got noise cancelling, so it cancels out the warehouse noise, etc. So accuracy is very good. And then some of the benefits of voice is guys are hands-free, so when they're picking, they're using both hands, they're not scanning one hand or putting the scan down and trying to pick it up with the scanner. And secondly, which we found is interesting, is productivity goes up because the guys can't talk to each other, because as soon as they start talking, then they're interacting with the voice system. So generally the warehouse is a lot quieter. So they interact with the device and not they make next to them. So it pushes that productivity, accuracy, etc. One of the biggest benefits of this is also the task-driven element of it. So on a scanner, you've got a screen and there's 5 fields. You can click in any field and do random stuff into those different fields, or scan different things that they shouldn't be. Whereas on the voice device, it goes it's almost archaic in the way it works, but it works really well because it basically says you need to give me this now. You can't give the device anything else other than that piece of information. And you can't deviate from that task. So you can't even exit from the task, provided you set the permissions up. So you basically have to go straight down the path and you can't deviate from that. And it makes it a lot easier for the guys to use. Because if they get stuck, they can ask for help. It tells them what it's expecting them to do. And accuracy also is very accurate from the perspective that the users checked it just to verify you at the right location. So when you get to the bin, it asks you to go to bin XYZ. And when you get there, you don't have to say, I'm there or whatever. You have to read the check digit that's on the bin. The guy doesn't know what the check digit is. So when you read it, it'll verify and confirm it's in the right place. Okay, so one of the things which I wanted to touch on in the slide was that what we've done is at Johnson and ASCO, up until recently, we've only done sales picking. So sales orders have been voice picked. But we've recently done a small project with Johnson where we've introduced voice picking to the jobs. And the project there is basically what they do is they pick stock and garments from the main warehouse, take it up to like a manufacturing area, embroidery area, where they put on logos and badges, and they then put that back into stock and pick it. So they're voice picking their stuff twice. The first pick is to pick it out, the base stock that they need, take it up to embroidery, do whatever they need to do, and bring it back, put it in stock, and then pick it at the sales side. So we've introduced in the voice picking system, wave release, so you can release multiple picking slips. So I don't know, those of you know sales order advanced, we can release multiple sales orders in one shot. Picking slips, you can now do that on voice, or on book, sorry. And I'm going to show you that screen a little bit later. Tailored order, that's the Johnson way that they're tailoring their stock and doing work in progress jobs. We've also integrated into sales and auto reservation. So again, you see the auto reservation plugin coming in. What we did for them is once they picked the stock for work, and it went up and had the embroidery, we customized their sales order allocation rule, which they obviously had to go and fetch that stock for this order to specifically look at the stock that was destined for that order. So when they load the sales order, they're also loading the job, so they link together. So we used the auto reservation logic there to customize it slightly so that when those sales orders are reserved, we go and look for stock for the job that is allocated. So we wouldn't steal other stock. So the embroidered stock was the same stock range, but we don't understand which is which. So we use the same the internal our own reservation plugin to get that right. So that's our voice changes on voice.
Sorry, Stephen.
Yes.
In charge of voice counting.
Yes. So if you look at the voice system, Barclay Voice has got a number of different modules. Stock take, all of those type of things. If you look at the analysis on benefit, bang for buck, the picking is the biggest advantage. But we do we don't have the module to run stock take and cycle count as yet. So the integration layer hasn't been built. But we've got the configuration and the Barclay devices support that. So yes, it's definitely a possibility to do that.
We've got the VLNs, so that would be ideal for fast counting on VLNs.
Yes.
Because that's the biggest hassle we've got with VLNs is the stock count.
Yes. Yeah, no, we've got one, yeah. The only would be that interface layer which changes. So the Barclay software does support that as out of the box. Yeah. As I say, the benefits are very high picking. That's why we did that one first. Sorry, Anton, you want to say something? Okay. The next element I want to talk around is kind of close to my heart because it's there's a lot of work from my side to get this right. I like to call it the DATASCOPE Dynamics element. So we built it up over the last probably 6 months, and the benefit we've got out of it is mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. It's really made a big difference to us internally. What it is essentially is just a small application that gets installed on the WMS server right up front before we do any installation, even before the WMS runs. What it allows you to do is it encapsulates a lot of tools together, like Lebanon. You can do all sorts of things with it. You can do a brand new installation from scratch. You can do upgrades. You can do system configuration, downloads, tools, they're all listed there. So a number of elements that are quite critical. What we've picked up in the past is we really struggled with upgrades and new installs. And the primary reason why we needed a lot of man hours to get it right. The reason we needed a lot of man hours is because there were a lot of elements to put together to install the system. There's config files in a number of places, there's different installations, different services. So to get it working, we would have to have documented, it's a long document, detailed document that you would have to give to consultants, say, okay, here's the install files, CD with a whole bunch of stuff on it, and here's the document. To get that right, you can get it right in a day or two, and it's fine, but the problem is it takes a lot of man hours. So we want to eliminate that altogether. So what I did is I took that document and I essentially automated that into this tool in two ways, the new installs and the upgrades. The other parts, the system setup, the downloads and those things, they came afterwards. Because what we want to do is try and bring everything together, because I don't want the consultant going to site and saying, okay, I need to do an upgrade, so I need to go to the web portal to download the patch, to copy the patch, now I need to go and download this to run the patch. Yeah, you just take the system manager, you go to the download port, you select your version, you download it, it's on the WMS server. When you're ready to do the upgrade, you say apply upgrade, you select the file, you download it, that's it. So the process here is to make Tiffany's job a lot easier, so she can do upgrades and use. And our DSPs too. So we went into the US market. Now we've got a team of guys that don't know all these technical aspects. They need to be able to install the software and get it running. So it's made a big difference for us. I'll just quickly demo it on the box, just to give you a feel for what it does. So as I said, you typically install this on the WMS server. It's a little icon on your desktop. So the first thing that you'll notice is it's got a little agent which keeps it up to date. So because it's being installed on servers all over the place, we want to make sure that everyone's on the same version. We don't want to have different versions all over the place. So what it does is it's not a non-optional auto heal. So when you run it, it'll go and check the version, it will download. The interface is relatively simple, and the idea here was to keep it as clean as it needs to be could, to give you as little options as we could. So everything in the background does the task for you. So some tools here, system configuration. So this piece here, we did a lot of work around not only on the manager, but also on the system. So you see on the screen there's essentially all the settings required for the system. With the SQL server setup, the Syspro server setup, and the WMS server setup. And then once I click next on that, it'll actually go and verify a lot of information. It will check that the servers exist. It will check that the SQL server, the SQL user and password has got permission that it needs. It will check that the web services on Syspro have been installed. These are all the things we used to hit when we did upgrades. We install the system with Syspro web services are installed, Syspro WCF is not installed, or there's no permission on the database. Things like that. We hit our head on these things. So as we hit our head, filter that back into the system manager. So it's got to a point where we've had a number of fresh installs that we haven't even done. And also Amy often says to me, oh, she didn't even know that Logi Solutions upgraded to the client system. And we didn't even know about it, and it's literally done with the system manager. So those type of things make it worth it. So the system setup, what we did is we moved all the configuration of the system into the Windows registry. So in the past years, we used to have files all over the place. You had to know where they are. You had to go and edit text files. It was horrible. But now write straight to the registry and read straight from the registry. So that's the system setup side of it. And then as you connect, if I click next, there you see it'll verify the connection details. Those are the checks and balances. This is on the Azure box, so it's a bad example. I've even got it on my local desktop. Yeah. So what it's saying here, out of interest, is giving me an error saying it could not connect to the local IP address for the Syspro server. And that's because Azure blocks that port, which is why I should have changed this before I started. That is a good example of what it's checking. It's checking. So if I had to go and set it up and it hadn't verified that, they're trying to run the WMS to get an error. So it pre-checks as much as it can. Okay, once it does that, it'll interrogate Syspro and say, okay, I found a company called Auto. It allows you to then tick that as a WMS company or not. So if you've got 5 companies and only 2 of them are WMS, you can switch them on. And when you switch them on, they'll ask you, would you like to create WMS databases, etc. So it configures all of that for you. Auto test, those are the 2 companies running the test box. Download a port. This is what I mentioned. We used to have a web portal to go and download ports. You don't need to do that anymore. You can do it straight from here. So it actually interrogates the ATP server and sees what files are available, and immediately puts them into the drop-down here. So you can select that, and you can select the version I'm on, version 4, and you can see the last 3 ports that are available, version 4, and you can go and download those ports. Once they're downloaded, you can go and apply them as an upgrade. There's a secret section of the which we use internally, so the tools a bit more products, a couple of tools that we use, so our consultants will use. Where we create patches, we can do system maintenance, we can do purging in the database, collation, correction on the database, and then a couple of our services. There's a service control panel as well. So these are some of the internal tools that we use on the piece of software. So this is the system manager that we use essentially to maintain and to keep the system up and running, or to do new installs. A lot of functionality and a lot of work is going into this tool. which will hopefully make your lives a lot easier from an upgrade and installation perspective. Okay, then I'm going to quickly run this through the slide, and then I'm going to give you a demo on these things. There's been a couple of smaller things which I want to touch on, so I'm going to go through the slide quickly first, and then I'll demo the stuff in the software. The first is online help. We've introduced context-sensitive help inside the product, and we built a framework probably about 3 to 4 months ago, and that framework allows us as DATASCOPE to inject help into the software, to start writing help, so that it's not just an interface where you can view, it's actually got an interactive screen where you can actually push images and links and text, etc., into the system and save that and export it, and we then deploy that out with the software. So when you get an upgrade, you'll get the online help coming with the product. So I'll show that to you. System setting migration, that's our settings. We moved all our settings over into a new panel-based or form-based screen. Before it was just, I used it earlier actually, I shouldn't have. A screen where you've got a long list of all the settings. So we, and internally in DATASCOPE, also trying to get used to the new format because it's a lot better, but also things have moved around with it. So, but it's definitely the way forward. There's a lot of validation in there and a lot of added functionality that helps you with the system settings. So, for example, if you've got a setting that conflicts with another setting, we can highlight that to you. This one here is a very big one. It makes a huge difference from an investigation perspective. In the past, when you picked a bin, in Cisco, we had this one big bin called pick bin, with one per warehouse. So if you have a warehouse, and you got, for example, PF, we used to call it a pick PF. When you picked in Cisco, all your stock went to this big bin. So if you had a problem on a picking slip, and you wanted to see what your stock levels were in Cisco, you would go to, for example, A100, and you've got 1,500 stock, your picking slip was for 4 weeks. How do you know what's going on, why it's in stock or in stock? So what we did there is we introduced a setting which you can turn on, and you can pick to a bin which equals a picking slip. So it's a 1-to-1. And it matches. Obviously, you need to be running Cisco 7 for that because it uses the extended field length of the bin field. So pick to bin, switch it on, and then you take a picking slip. You know what the picking slip number is. You can go to Cisco image movements and you can match up the movements and you can match up your stock levels. So if you've got an invoice that doesn't picking slip doesn't invoice because there's lack of stock, you can go and check that bin. Makes it a lot easier from an investigation perspective. Custom forms, I'm going to show this to you. We've introduced it into tracking IDs. So very much like Cisco has custom forms where you can inject whatever information you want against an entity. You can do that in the product now. Works in a very similar way. It adds a table called the plus table and you can push information in. Something like that. Printer setup, we've done a lot of work around printers. There's been a lot of pain, I think, in the past. Drop down on the top right. We print to a set warehouse. You have to have multiple warehouses set up even though you don't use them. So we've introduced stations, print stations. I'll show that to you. And then finally the job libraries, which I touched on earlier in the voice. We brought that in for voice. So that allows you just to release multiple picking slips. Release picking slips for multiple jobs. Let's have a quick look at some of these. We'll touch on the online help and the system settings. So with the context help, we push F1 in here. It'll load up our help menu. And how we structure the help is it's based off the menu structure itself. So what it has on the left is essentially the same menu that we saw earlier, except it's you can actually pull up documentation based on that. So it's already gone straight through because we were on the picking slip release screen. It's gone straight through giving me the documentation on that particular item. And then you can put the screen dumps, etc. in here. So this documentation is currently being updated by Anton. He's pushing spends a lot of time on it, pushing documentation into this portal so that you guys can have a look at it. There's two elements to this. The first is obviously the online help section that we are editing, but also got a customized section where you can actually push in custom information if you want to put in anything customizable. So if there's something that relates to the process that you do, you can include that in your custom help. So the guys that help, they will see the standard help plus the custom help. So it's quite a nice addition. And as I say, it's not fully, obviously we're pushing it out as fast as we can. But luckily this doesn't require development time, so I'm not too involved in it anymore. Anton is also pushing the documentation itself in. And you can search at the top here, so if you type label, it'll go and highlight all the screens that apply to label. So I know some of the guys can use this to search for specific functionality. If they're looking for a specific screen and they can't remember where it is, you pop it in there and search for the screen itself. And then in system settings, have a look at that. There's a new menu item, new system settings, and then what we've done is essentially each module has got its own little section. And if I go to the layout, for example, you'll see it's tabular driven, so it's got multiple tabs for different specific sections. And what I was talking about earlier is a validation. For example, if you're putting in a report template for your reports, it goes and queries what reports are sitting on the server, and you can actually specify which reports. Whereas in the past, you just had to type the name in and hope for the best. You spelled it wrong, and you failed when you tried to print. So there's a lot more validation in these system settings, and it's a lot more structured. So you've got drop downs, and as I said, lookups. So a lot of work has gone into this, to moving these into the right places and restructuring them. And I feel it's a huge step forward from, this is the existing screen. I go to something like page. You'll see we've got a lot of settings in here, and it's quite difficult sometimes to find what you're looking for. So the new tabular format is going to make a big difference. And we'll be discontinuing the existing screen in the coming version. So in a couple of versions time, we'll deprecate out the existing system setting screens. Okay, pick to pick bin. That obviously is where we're picking straight into the bin location with the pick. I'll just show you the custom forms quickly. So we have a look under tracking ID, information check. Sorry. Yes.
Is it going to be writing every time?
Correct. So it'll create bins for you in WMS and Sysprep. So it'll create those bins for you. Yeah, automatically. For each of the pick flips, yeah. Obviously, once those pick flips are complete, those bins technically can be flushed out. The Sysprep doesn't allow you to keep those. It doesn't do any damage.
The system will do it actually.
No, some people will just create those bins for you. They'll stay there.
Will the bins be flashed out automatically?
No, they won't be flushed out automatically. The stock levels will drop down to zero. So you
Would there be a setting where we can stand the small?
ultimately that would be yes. Okay. Developing a flush command to get rid of that. Because what we can introduce is the bins that you can actually activate and deactivate bins. So there's a flag against our bins in our tag. So as the pick flip is complete, that flag gets set as inactive. So technically we could just write a simple report so just going to kill any bins that are inactive. So yes, so you can come to this.
It stops back to zero then.
Yeah, then you're fine. Yep.
Also on the Syspro side, there's a standard purge function in Syspro that will purge those bins if they're empty for over 3 months. So obviously those bins will be created in Syspro during the time that the stock's going through, and they'll remain in Syspro. But once that bin becomes zero, and for 3 months, the normal Syspro purge will actually take them away if you run the purge.
Okay. Custom forms. Let's have a look. I'm going to quickly open up a information check here. This is normal information check. But the query does apply to other places that the track IDs are available. For example, track ID looker, you can view it from there. So if I take the track ID here and I right click on it, you'll see there's a menu item for tracking ID custom form fields. So what it does is it pulls up just a form, and this form is dynamic, so it'll change based on whatever you've added. So for example, if I wanted to go put in there, say the guy wanted to do, I'm going to record the weather. Do the one, give it a name. Alpha, give it a length, characters. So very similar to what Cisco does. So that, what that will do is it will amend the table in the background, so the database tables will be changed, and if the table isn't there, we'll create the table. If it's there already, we'll amend the table as needed. So the data will the tables will adjust based on your custom forms. And as soon as you do that, we can save it against the tracking ID. Okay. And then once we go back in there, that information is saved and restored. So you could put custom information against your tracking IDs, and then obviously pull that against reports, put it against any other screens that where you can view a tracking ID. Say you have a tracking ID looker, you can right click on it and check the weather on that, for example. So it's really just it's the start of our custom form field. So we're going to be rolling this out for example, purchase orders, all different parts of the system where we've got logical entities that guys want to put additional information against. So it makes logical sense. And also it's very the same. It's tailoring it again to the next level. Okay, then my printer setup. So probably didn't notice it earlier, but when I log into the system, there's a print station at the bottom. So what we've got is you can go and select the print station at the bottom. So I can select REC1. Okay. In the past, what you would have to do is if you did a checkout and you did a checkout in a specific warehouse, that warehouse would have a printer linked to it. So the checkout and the warehouse. So if I had 5 checkout stations, then and you had 5 printers, you couldn't specify different. You couldn't specify printing any of those specific printers. So now what you can do is you can set up the say the 5 stations against FG. If you go to the setup printers, you'll see there's an additional element here called print station. So what it does is it allows you to take the warehouse and break it down by station, and then give that each of those stations a specific printer. And then over and above that, you can also set it to prompt. So you can, there's a tick box to prompt. And if you tick that box, when he prints, he's going to get a prompt with a list of printers. So it'll default to the one that's against his name, and you can select other ones. So if, for example, someone logs into a different station for that day, you can select a different station, or you can select from the drop-down. So it makes the printing, it's a small addition, but it kind of gets away from having to worry about having had some customers who had to set up fictitious warehouses just to print. Just to print with devices. So again, a relatively small change, but it's just enhancing the functionality that we need. And you can also, if you click on the printer at the bottom, you can double click on it, you can change your station once again. You don't have to go and log in every time. And the final element that I want to show you is our job wave release. There we go. Okay. So just 2 things on this, on the highlight here is we've changed a little bit. For those of you who know the sales order wave release, we had a little pop-up screen that sits in the middle of the show connections. What is that? There's a pop-up that you select your filters on. If you look at sales order allocation advanced wave release, this is your filter screen, okay? Which is takes up quite a lot of space, and also once the screen is closed, you have to you get your sales orders, but you have to come back to the screen to edit those filters. So we just changed it slightly on the job wave release, and we introduced this little panel on the left, which has your filters, which allows you to minimize those filters to the. Sorry, zoom a little bit slide there. But it allows you to get those filters out the way, but they're quite close at hand if they need them. Okay, so it's a small change, and we'll be rolling out similar functionality to the sales order side just to keep things up. And then this is also very similar to Cisco. You just got our range here. So I'm going to pull up a range of jobs. And that'll load up all those jobs, all the jobs onto the screen. So we've also introduced some of the functionality that's available in the sales order wave release. For example, if you do an auto reserve of a sales order at once, you get a pop-up like this that says it picks up. If there's 20 lines on the order and all the lines have gone green, it says, well, I picked up. Some of these orders are ready to go, you can release them. You can just click the button and release those picking steps. So if you're releasing multiple, if you've got a huge amount of data you need to work through, if you auto reserve, say, 5,000 lines, you can get 20 picks up immediately. You can just release them, let them go, and then you can start working through the remainder, see which ones you can partially get on the first line. So on the job side, it's exactly the same. You get a pop-up saying, this job is good to go, you can release it. So that's one of the pieces of functionality that's useful. And then also, there's a right-click menu within the grid. That says you can release the specific job. So you can go and release specific items in the grid. And you can also group by, it's stated by the parent stock code. Group it up and you can release a set group of orders. So if there's a group with a specific parent part for the release, you can go and release those. This is all functionality that's available in the sales order wave release, which is useful in this side of things. And you can also do a auto reserve at a group level, and auto reserve where you do that. So basically lets you bring in a range of jobs and work with them in the screen, rather than opening the job, releasing it, opening the job, releasing it. So the wave release screen is quite a bit more advanced, and we'll be rolling that functionality out into the sales order side of things as well.
Sorry, Steve, before you close that, the auto reserve on load button click box, I think, is really powerful.
Yes. So that's a good thought there. So instead of having to open the screen and then click auto reserve, you click that button before you load the data, it loads it into the background, does auto reserve, then loads the screen. So it just skips over a step, which might seem insignificant, but if you're doing a lot of orders, the initial time to load all orders takes quite a long time to get it onto the screen. Johnson, when they do sales orders, they're doing from I think literally January last year through to now. So it's a huge volume of orders that they work through. They get that onto the screen, and then they work through. Obviously, with this, you can tick that box. So that auto reserve and skip a step in the middle. Lets you load it much faster. I think that concludes my slides for the moment. I don't know if there's any questions on anything that I've shown. Pass through it. No questions? Good.
Okay. All right, so we're going to kick off the next session. Next slide there. I think who's coming up is Amy. Amy. Great, thank you. Thanks, Amy.
Sorry. There we go. Just moving everybody's faces around. Sorry. Cool. So I'm going to show you a little bit more, just two small things on the software. Sorry, before I dive into that. Steve, what I think you meant to chat on that we have done that I really like, or I think something that's going to add a lot of value for a lot of you is we've linked to the sales order initial line in SysPro. And what that means for you is that you can edit your sales orders or insert a line in your sales orders in SysPro and continue to pick without an issue. So we will adjust. In the past, we've always had a VB script that said, whoa, 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 you can't touch a sales order once you release the picking slip. Now you can go and insert new lines. And if you delete the line, we also check and warn the user that they can't continue, which I think is a massive value add for a lot of sites. But now I'm going to talk about the shipping module. So not all of you know about the shipping module or load planning, but they're two very similar modules, but fundamentally different on how we attack it. So currently there are a couple of sites running load planning. And what this is that it allows you to load a truck. The loads are generated on a route level. So automatically the pick slips that you released are linked to the customer route and they get loaded on a route, and that can decide to load the truck with. You can't really plan too much more than that, and you have to load at a full picking slip level. So the fundamental difference here is that once I load the picking slip, it assumes that all the pallets that I had on that picking slip are now on the truck, one shot. If somebody forgets to load the last pallet, you don't know too much around it. You have to be quite vigilant around making sure that all the pallets are loaded on the truck. And you have to have invoiced or dispatch noted before you truck load, which is fine in a South African context. It seems to go down quite well. But when we came over here, people said, not a chance. They will not be invoicing their stock before they've loaded it on their truck because for insurance purposes and all sorts of other reasons, they believe that that was the wrong thing to do. So the shipping module was brought around to cater for that, for one, and for another thing, to give us a bit more flexibility on picking and packing. And what that does is it adds in a step to allow you to repack your stuff. Once you've picked and checked out, you can repack stock on a shipping pallet. So we've introduced the concept of a shipping pallet, which I'll talk through just now, and then allows you to truckload each shipping pallet onto a truck. And only once you've done that, process the dispatch note. It also means that if you leave behind a pallet, we won't dispatch that in one setup mode, or you can enforce that every single pallet does get loaded on the truck before the user can click dispatch. It also allows us to create a document, a more formal waybill, assign a carrier, assign a shipping rate, and really drill down into what is on those pallets. So we can build up a complete ASN now, which is an advanced shipping notice or notification. So fundamentally, the flow is a little bit different like this. So in the past, we would have done the start picking, the checkout of packing, obviously optional depending on the site that you're running. Then we would invoice, then we'd truckload, and that would be the end. Now we would turn into something where we'd start, pick, again, optionally checkout or pack. We would then palletize, and I'm going to go into palletization in the next few slides because there are quite a few options there. After you've palletized, you've created these things called shipping pallets. You can now load the truck and then dispatch, and then obviously invoice in SysPro. Why we've had to move to dispatch notes is because dispatch notes give us the flexibility to not only tell SysPro which line on the sales order to invoice, or to dispatch note, but how much. So it means that although you've packed all that quantity, maybe you don't dispatch the full quantity. So we can really drill down to the granular level of how much is on the truck. The shipping module allows us to set up two different waybill types. So this is to cater for two different environments where some people are going to have a fixed load. They're going to plan their routes, and that happens a lot here because they don't have their own trucks necessarily. They're calling a carrier company and they say they want an 18-foot truck or whatever, it fits this many pallets, and therefore they can plan this entire fixed load, and they make sure that the user who's loading the truck cannot click dispatch until every single shipping track ID that they've planned for that truck is loaded. The benefit here is that you can plan this way in advance. So even if you just link the sales orders, DATASCOPE will understand inherently that any picking slip that you create from that sales order and any shipping track ID that has stock for that sales order needs to go on the truck, so that you don't have to. It's not a reactive approach that once you've created all the shipping track IDs, you go and create the waybill. Although you can do that, you can do it up front and say that sales order. By the way, anything that I pick from that must go on this truck because this truck is leaving by X time. There's also an option to create a flexible load, which is much more for the sites where they've got a truck that comes every day and they just try and jam that truck as full as they can. So I think MetroClock is one of our sites that do that right now. And the idea there is to build up shipping pallets, load the truck as much as you can, but then obviously only dispatch whatever you've loaded. Don't dispatch a whole lot. So the next truck that comes the next day, we can keep loading more shipping pallets. This then obviously allows you also to repack the shipping pallets to whatever configuration is better to squeeze it into the truck, sort of a little game of Tetris there. So in that flexible mode, you can load at any point, and at any point you can say, right, I'm done loading, I want to dispatch. And then depending on how many sales orders you've got linked, we create a dispatch note per sales order. So as I explained, there's a new element called shipping palletization, and that has meant we introduce a new new track ID type, which is called the shipping track ID, and this allows us to repack stock in any sort of configuration once we've already picked it. So shipping pallets are created either there's a module on the scanner to be able to repack boxes or totes or stock codes, depending how you want, and we can turn that into a checkout mode that allows you forces you to repack everything. So the guy doesn't accidentally leave a couple of units behind. He has to repack all of the units, and that sort of doubles as a checkout. There's also an open shipping track ID on most packing screens. So those of you that run line mass check, tote checkout, pack station checkout, any of those checkout screens, when you can click open shipping track ID on that screen, and it would create a shipping pallet, and it understands that as you pack each box, it would land on the shipping track ID. So it's those the users standing at a pack station, packs it into a box, and then immediately puts it onto a shipping pallet right next to them. And then lastly, if you're not doing any of the sort of picking or any of the packing modules or transactions, we can automatically create shipping track IDs at the end of your picking. So if you say, I'm going to pick these big units that are now, let's say big, we've got a furniture store here, a furniture warehouse, and those, each couch then gets converted into a shipping pallet because that is the unit that they're going to load. Just waiting for it to load. There's also an option to capture mass and dimensions. So you can force weighing and capturing of dimensions for your shipping pallets, which allows better handover to the LSPs and better planning. And we track the shipping status throughout the process. So much like our picking slips that went through various statuses, we're now, as soon as the picking slip is done, it hands over to shipping track IDs. We can then see how far in the process it is. So is it created? Is it busy being packed? Is it finished being packed? Is it weighed and was this mass checked and the dimensions created? And then is it loaded on the truck? And once it's loaded, is it dispatched and so complete? And then obviously a handover to LSP would come later as well. So that's our shipping module. I'm going to go through very quickly the points on the grocery pack screen now, and then open up the software just to show you the look and feel of shipping quickly and the grocery packing. So we've recently created a new checkout to rule them all, is what Javen and I are calling, because we found a lot of sites have different flavors of checkout, and we wanted to combine them all in one screen and yet achieve that really fast checkout that you get at a grocery store. So at the supermarket, like when you're coming past the till, it's the fastest thing to scan each item and go bink, 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 and pack it into a container. So we've really modeled the screen off that. It even allows you, for those of you running sales kits, it allows you to scan a kit parent. So if you've pre-assembled a kit and you scan it, we'll go and fetch all the components, check you have enough, and put it in the box. Or you can build up kits there. It allows mixing of different picking slips. So currently, our packing screen, except for one variation of it, forces you to pack one picking slip at a time, and you can't take stock from two different picking slips and put it into the same box. This allows you to mix anything you like, as well as sales orders. So you can take multiple sales orders and pack them into the same box, or pack it however you like, as long as they're all linked on the same image. And then on top of that, we know that often packers and people make mistakes. So there's often a question for, well, how do I undo this? And there's an unpack tab, which I'll show you as well. So you can pack a box and then decide, oh, sure, but shouldn't have done that, and unpack the box, or unpack the line, or do whatever you like. And lastly, the kicker is a box clone, which allows you to pack a box in a certain configuration and then say, well, actually, I want to replicate that 30 times. So you could pack stock code A, B, C into a box and say, but actually, I've got 30 of those, replicate it. And we would replicate that out and print the labels for you. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. My mouse will link up. Firstly, I'm just going to minimize that, hide some faces here. On the shipping screen, this is the Weibull maintenance screen. It's just to give you a bit of a flavor for something that we've got here. So you can see I've got a Weibull here. I can select a shipper. I can decide to give it its unique shipper Weibull number. I can select a route. I can decide a customer. That's optional. I can link sales orders to it. So you can see I've got a number of sales orders here. It's giving me a picking slip for those sales orders that I've released. But I can also just link the sales order, the picking slip status, the customer, all that. And then I can drill down into the picking track IDs. So what are the picking track IDs that I've linked to for that sales order? And you can see I've got some lines highlighted in red here, which show me that they haven't been palletized onto a shipping track ID. So as I explained the different ways of creating shipping track IDs earlier, it can be an extra step or it can automatically happen. So an example here is where it's automatically happened, and our shipping track IDs all start with an S. So that helps you understand that that's a different pallet type. And then if we look at the shipping track IDs panel or pane, you can see all the different stages. So here you can see I'm still busy packing that one. This one has been loaded, and this one has been associated, and this one is still in packing. So a blue one would be in packing, and then I wouldn't be able to dispatch until I've loaded all of them. It depends on the type, obviously, as I explained, if you're going to do a fixed load or a flexible load for a weighable. So we define a weighable, link a whole load of sales orders, load the truck. And that's more or less how shipping works. Any questions on shipping before I dive into MSN Grocery Pack? So on the MSN Grocery Pack, I'm just going to show you a typical order. So I would either scan an MSN number or I can scan a picking slip number and it would resolve it. You can see I've got 2 sales orders here and they're linked picking slips. And I've already gone and created some cartons, which would show me in the stock, which would be shown to me in the stock already. But this is the remaining stock I have to pack. So I would select a carton that I'm going to put the stock into, or I could scan a carton number, and the stock is going to, the cursor's then waiting at barcode. So now I could start scanning my stock. Obviously, I don't have a wedge scanner here, so I'm just going to type it in. But you can see as I scan it, immediately it's packing the stock here. So I would keep scanning the stock, and then I can click complete carton, which would close off my box. This is an optional prompt as well to go and weigh the box. Obviously, totally optional for people, and this would check against your theoretical mass. That would go through there, creates the box, and again I start scan, put it into a box. If I want to scan that lovely brown is my kit, which we can see is made up of these components. So if I want to drill down and actually pack the kit, I can, and I can look at what the stock that is already packed. So in B1 I have some A100s, B4 I've got some A100s. What have I packed? Here's one with some more stock codes. And if I want, I can then just go and click unpack carton. And it'll unpack the whole carton. So it's dropped off the screen there. So I can repack the stock and the stock would have come back on here. A really nice feature here is clone carton. So I can say I'm going to clone box 3.3 and it's going to ask me, well, how many would you like to make? And I say I want to make 3 of these. It's going to pack a whole lot more stock there and create a whole lot more boxes that I can then go and have a look at, that would be identical clones of the first one I made. A feature that we've brought across from PackStation Checkout is standard packs, which allows us to look at the stock that's remaining to be packed and say, well, we see that you've got full boxes. So what's the point of packing a full box if you've got stock that's already in the full pan size? So here I've got I'm packing 14 A100s, but the pack size is 2. Those are already in boxes. I don't want to reweigh them and repack them and action it. I just want to say, go for it, print me 7 labels. Or I want to say, yeah, I've got 5 full boxes, print me the labels for that. And off those would come. I don't have the prompt on now, but obviously you can prompt to select a printer, and that comes in line with what Steve was talking about earlier around the print station. So you can see my boxes are building up and it ends up being quite a quick process. Obviously, I can have a little quick look at the sales order comments there if there's anything important that somebody wants to tell me. And here's a shipping track ID that I touched on earlier. So if I want, I can open up a shipping track ID, and as I pack these boxes, they get loaded onto the shipping track ID. Questions on MSN Checkout? And any other software? I think that was my section for now until we come back to the KPIs at the end.
Thanks,
Adrian, can we just see the screen? The PowerPoint?
Presentations now.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, good afternoon, guys. I've just got 3 or 4 slides to present from my side. Just chatting around the 5-star rating system that we've introduced. What is this all about? Well, we've built DATASCOPE based on methodologies. Methodologies around the sales cycle, methodologies around project management, methodologies around how we support our clients, and methodologies around development. And you know, as the business has grown, we've picked up gaps. We haven't been perfect, but we've certainly, next slide, Adrian,
We've certainly logged corrective actions, and those corrective actions have then been actioned and built back into the methodologies. So why do we need this 5-star rating system? Well, over the years, staff have left, new staff have arrived, and to be frank, last year we dropped some of these methodologies, and we decided to put a tool in place that would measure them on a portal in view of making sure that we comply with the methodologies, both from an internal perspective and from our partner perspective. We call them DSPs. So we rank the DSPs, we rank the internal departments, and this becomes a performance management tool. Next slide. So who gets measured? Obviously, the software development department in Port Elizabeth gets measured on a whole lot of criteria, which we'll cover shortly. Midrand gets, the Joburg office gets measured, the Charlotte office gets measured, and then as we grow our DSPs, we measure our partners. They've bought into the process well, and we're about to launch this 5-star rating system. Next. So what gets measured? Obviously, we've got business plans per area, per DSP. We've got targets, revenue targets. We've got new logos that we want to bring on board. We've got marketing events, and we agree business plans up front per department, and those get measured. So these are the different types of measurements that will fall into the 5-star rating system. Next is obviously projects. Every project that we do is measured, so that the PM will open a project file. You're probably all familiar with the project files, and either Terry or myself will audit that file at the end of the project, or within a month after the project, and the ratings on that audit obviously form part of the project manager's performance review. The next one is a critical list, and a critical list is really internal. But what we find 3 weeks before go live is often we're not up to scratch with the go live. Everyone says yes, the stock will be labeled, the housekeeping's good, and invariably it's a mad rush before a go live. And what the critical list does, it's a little survey monkey that goes out by email to the PM on that project that just is a checklist. Is this ready? Is that ready? Have you done a dry run? Have you got sign-off on your project management client sign-off sheet? And it just really ticks the boxes, and they have to complete that and send that back, and we monitor that. Because it's all very well to say yes, the stock will be labelled on time, and then we go into a stock take and we find a portion of the warehouse not even labelled, and that causes massive problems. The next one is a new customer project customer feedback form. We do that 2 months after the project goes live, and it's really to ask the customer, how did the project run in your view? Was it well managed? Were your expectations met? Or was it a mad rush around go live? And that really gives us feedback from a customer perspective to say what must we do better. The next one, which will go out twice a year, is to all our clients that have got support contracts, really just measuring the level of support and satisfaction that you're getting from Tiffany's team. And it's down to your support person that deals with you, and we want detailed feedback on that. Again, it's a survey monkey. It just pops up on your email, and it takes you literally 3-4 minutes to complete. These surveys are all very quick and easy to do. The next one, which we'll do once a year, is a customer loyalty index, which really just measures client loyalty and general satisfaction. And I think that's important, because that's the opportunity that if you feel things are slacking off, that's a good time to raise the flag. The following one is our DATASCOPE University. Some of you know about it. We're going to touch on it later. It's an excellent way to learn the software, to learn about warehousing. And Adrian's developed this over 2 to 3 years. We've put a huge amount of effort into it. But what we measure here is we've got 12 modules, and who's completed those modules, and we've got reports that show outstanding courses by individual. Now that's internal, it's with our partners, our DSPs, and we would encourage clients to also do that. So identify a couple of people in your organization that need to do these courses. It's free of charge. Nominate which courses they should do, and you'll get emailed reports on them. One back. On development, on every sprint, which we do sprints every couple of weeks, we've got a code audit review. So we get they actually audit the code to see that the code is according to our methodologies. There's testing feedback from Javen. So how many times did he raise a bug? How many times was that bug not fixed by the next day? And there's general feedback there on testing. Was the sprint delivery date met? So in other words, if we said the cutoff is 3 weeks from now, did we meet those delivery dates? And the last one is obviously Anton and Amy run our development roadmap, and were the roadmap items that we put into that sprint, were they completed? Because that's building the product. The following one is around people management. IMP stands for Integrated Management Practices, and we're quite strict on 6 weekly one-on-ones and performance reviews twice a year based on individual goals, which link back to our business plan. And these one-on-ones and performance reviews have to be done and uploaded to SharePoint by department. And it's just a measure to make sure that IMP is live and well within our business. Obviously, this doesn't apply to our partners, and it probably doesn't apply to our clients as well, because it's an internal system that we run. And then all these scores together give a overall rating per department and per DSP. Next. So what's the impact to you? Well, nothing at the moment, but what will happen is we will have this portal on our website. It will be transparent. The ratings will be there later this year, or within the next 2 months or so. And the beauty of this is if we get a new customer that wants to implement WMS, they can go onto the portal and they can actually look at the different DSPs and decide who to use based on these measurements. So my last point is it's really just a dashboard which we're going to use internally to make sure methodologies are maintained. And my plea to everyone is if you do get a survey that comes across your desk, take a few minutes, complete it, because they all come back to me, and I will ensure that whatever corrective action needs to be taken is taken. And obviously on the positive comments, I'll make sure that the feedback goes back to the applicable employee around positive. So it's not only negative, we're looking for positive feedback as well, should there be any. So that's me, just in a nutshell, very simple dashboard that just manages our methodologies, because without our methodologies, we wouldn't have a business. But thank you for your time.
Thanks, Nick. Great, thank you. I just want to touch a little bit just around South Africa, because obviously this is a South African roadshow today that we're covering. So just next slide, Adrian. I'm new to the organization, so I only started with DATASCOPE in the last 3-4 months. But just being in a very short period of time, just an outlook onto what happened, I'd say last year and most of this year, there's been significant challenges within DATASCOPE. Quite a large amount of staff turnover from a support point of view. Tiffany's new from a support manager point of view. And I think we've taken a look at the business on how we can stabilize what we've got and just focus around staff development, finding the right people, making sure the resources are trained up accordingly, and making sure that we're meeting the expectations. Without slating Peter in any way, I think Peter was excellent from a technical point of view and working on the system side, but a lot of the people skills got lost. The customer relations got lost, the staff communication got lost, and we're working around that to rebuild that. So from a 2018 and before, the last 12 months, thank goodness it's behind us. We're now looking forward. The outlook for 2019, we've got a fairly small support team at the moment, so there's going to be a lot of focus on literally doubling that support team. So we're trying to get to 5 to 6 clients per site champion that we've got. But at the moment, there's not quite that overlap. So statement from my side is you will see quite a bit of improvement around our support going forward, and that's going to really take a little bit of time. So we're going to go through some teething problems at the moment. We are swimming at the moment. We're not drowning, but we want to get to the point where we can all sort of sit on the beach and enjoy the sunshine with everybody in Africa rather than be swimming. Some of the focus that we were looking at around the consultants is we've had a very generalist approach to consultants in the past, and we never really filtered down into having them specialize. So I'll cover it a bit later again in a bit more detail. A little bit of an oxymoron. We want our site champions to be generalists at your site, but they need to have 1 or 2 or 3 specialist skills, whether it's SQL scripting or whether it's writing reports or whether it's knowing the back end of a stock count exactly how it works. So when you have a requirement that you want reports and that site champion doesn't have that sort of high-end skill, then they will bring the right consultant in to make sure that you get that skill that's best for that function. So that's going to be a slight change, but with the confidence that the generalist that you've got is very, very general and can do everything that needs to be done. But when they have a specialist requirement, we'll bring in the specialist for that requirement as well. Implementation consultants, so we're changing the approach a little bit from, we had project managers around our new projects, so it doesn't affect a lot of people in the room, but the likes of your Julias and Peters were project managers, and the project managers ran the projects, also were very, very involved in the software. And that sort of delayed things a little bit because they were bogged down, they were stuck, and they were cemented into that project, got absorbed into that project, and then we found they weren't available to do a lot of other stuff. So we're changing that slightly to have them as implementation consultants, where they will focus around the needs of the client, putting that into a document, converting that with the development team into software, and I'll look after the high-level project management, which is running the weekly meetings, maintaining the budgets, maintaining the time frames, and making sure that the project management level is done. And implementation consultants can hand over sooner to the support team to make sure that we start meeting our 10 to 12-week cycles on projects going forward. So it'll be quite a big change there. My main focus for the rest of this year, definitely the future, is to work closely with the clients. I'm not very technical on the software. I'll be the first to put my hand up to say I'm not technical, but I'm very good at running businesses. I'm very good at managing people, and I'm very good at redoing things to meet expectations. So failure is not an option for me. So I'd like to believe we're all in good hands at the moment with me at the reins, and I just ask that we just give ourselves the opportunity to let us fix what is broken and focus on next year where we really we're going to hit the ground running come 2019. Just to introduce the support team, we don't have them all running around today, but we've got Tiffany, she is here today. We've got Adrian that is running our desk today. We've got Rudolph that's been struggling with the voice picking demo. So we had license expired and we've had a lot of issues today. So apologies that that's not running. It should be running up by the end of the session. We've got Carmen that's been with us recently. We've got Farai that joined recently. And we've got Julia that, what did you know, that's been with us for 8 or 10 years, 6 years. Julia is part of the implementation team. So Julia is part of the support team, but she heads up implementation. So she's going to be my right-hand lady going forward on new projects. And Tiffany's going to be my left-hand lady heading up our support team going forward. And, you know, we've got a philosophy, you know, great people with great processes equal professionalism. There's a gap in this because we need resources that are skilled. So currently we've got a lot of new resources and they've got a lot of skill, but not a lot of skill around WMS and DATASCOPE specifically. So again, that is where we're focusing. We'll touch on the university just now, but there's a significant amount of man hours that we are putting into staff training every month. So we try to get our billing to, we've got a target of around 70% of the hours that we work into billable. The rest of that is what we call value add. So that is value add, putting back into that resource, knowledge, skill, knowledge share, knowledge transfer, those kind of things. There's a big emphasis on that going forward. So value Value of a support contract. We are in the process, I'm starting at the bottom at the moment, but we are in the process of re-signing all our support agreements. And part of the support agreements, just want to touch very, very quickly, you get access to the DSU. That is our DATASCOPE University. So we will offer that university to all people that are on support contracts. Every one of our clients with a support contract. As many of your staff on it at the moment, we're going to try and measure how many we need as the right number. But we're encouraging people on our support contracts to schedule people, make sure that they're educated, make sure they're getting their certifications, make sure they understand exactly how we do our supports, how we implement projects, and how our software works, and our methodologies around that. So Adrian will touch on the university just now, but that is very, very key. You get a dedicated site champion. So like I said, we're going to have somebody that is a generalist that knows your site very, very well to work the backup. So rather than quoting a support desk and getting a different consultant every time, got to get familiar with your site, understand how your checkout works slightly different to the standard checkout. That dedicated site champion is very key to the support going forward. You've got a fixed budget. So what the support agreement is, let's say you bought a silver agreement that gave you 16 hours a month. You know, we allow overs and unders. So you can go into the negative of your support agreement, or you can accumulate hours, which will then be used for your upgrade, which we recommend on an annual basis. So it allows you within a fixed budget to manage your hours as you go during the year. It allows you to include your upgrades. So as I say, your upgrade is quite a significant amount of hours, and we recommend it on an annual basis. If you've got your support agreements in place, we'll work with you to accumulate those hours. They can also be used for training. They can also be used for report writing and generating dashboards. So there's value-added services which we don't talk about enough because we've been chasing our tails, if I could call it that, because we've been under-resourced. And we haven't got down to the value add of the actual support agreements, which is spending time with you guys, having it down on your site, doing a site audit, understanding where the shortcomings are from the original implementation, working with your staff to say, listen, this guy's not picking the way that he was trained to pick. The functional spec has been creep on it from an operational point of view for whatever reasons, and let's revisit that on a regular basis to make sure that you're getting your value add of the system that you've invested. A lot of the time, the people in the room are too busy to do that, so our consultants will do that on a regular basis. And it gives you your support manager. So on a monthly basis, you'll have your support meetings, we'll go through the calls, we'll try and pick up trends, we'll try and understand, is there user training requirements, is there a bug in the system, is your hardware still meeting the requirements that it was meant to be when we implemented, what has changed in the environment and what can we improve. Yeah. Just some stats, some very high level figures. 2016, we had just over 1,000 calls. 2017 went to 950, and now we are just short of 970 year to date for this year. Just to touch on the reasons for that, if you're having a look on this slide over here on the bottom right, it's got to do with the amount of clients that we had. So it seems like there was a dip in calls, but what it really boils down to is the stability in the software. Because we went from 23 clients to 27 clients. We went from 1,100 users to 1,400 users, but in that period, the calls dropped. So it's one of two things. Either we had better staff back then, if I can put it that way, that were delivering sort of better responses to the calls, and we had software that was pretty stable back then where we weren't getting a lot of those calls. The calls are climbing at the moment, but it's got to do with the significant new clients that come on board. So that's really where the trends are around that. Point I wanted to make down the bottom here, on our call system at the moment, we do encourage people on all the calls that are logged to actually report on the call, evaluate our call, give us a star rating so that we can obviously provide that feedback and manage the resources as we go. Historically, this is just the calls for the year. There was only a total of 6,050 odd calls that were evaluated. So out of almost 1,000 calls logged, only 50 were rated. So we encourage you guys to rate our calls so we can provide feedback. I'm pretty sure if I sit in the room and say to people, we had one bad rated call this year, I can see that that's getting smiles across the room, but people are going, well, I haven't experienced that. We have the positives, people that have rated, 38 of our ratings have been at a level 5, which is significant. So without sounding all doom and gloom, it does sound very negative. The approach of today is to just let you know we're aware of what we've done wrong, we want to do better, and we need your feedback so that we can improve as and where you guys see it. Provide us the feedback. Thanks, Adrian. Okay, we've discussed the principles of the site champion. We're currently growing the team. I've harped on that. So as I said, we are adding support consultants going forward. and we're going to add a very dedicated report writer. So it's someone that's going to have a very, very high skill around report writing and sort of business analysis, so that they can bring that together and they can sit with our clients and build the dashboards that everybody needs to see their business and get the true value out of WMS. It's fine if you've got the system, but you don't have the information. You've got the information and it's not presented well enough that you're utilizing it to its full benefit. So that we see as a big value, is putting the right people in these seats. I have discussed that we're going to have generalists, but exceptionally focused with certain skills, and having specialists. Our focus the points around training, that's where we go. And I'll ask for constant feedback from our customer base as well. So that's the only way we can improve. Thanks, Some really positive things that we have been doing for the last couple of years, and we are consistently doing and improving. We do have our weekly quit sessions that are still running. We have constant technical upskilling, where we're actually looking at the support people that can understand a lot more around code. So it's not just looking at the front end and sort of being your super user plus a bit more. We're going right down to the code. There's two reasons for that. The one is we can resolve problems quicker with you guys on site or remotely from Johannesburg. And the second thing is it takes a bit of pressure off our development team. You don't have to keep going back to development and saying, we need help, we need help. That's a skill set we've taken on as a support role. Technical upskilling, spoken about CISPRO certification. That is our DATASCOPE user group. And that is, we encourage people, everybody in this room, to start utilizing that a lot more, because the more interaction we get from the community, and we all provide information that allows us to then improve faster. So if anybody doesn't know about the DAT, please speak to your site champion. We'll explain it to you. We'll go into a lot more detail. We'll ask you to log information on the DAT. And we built in the database after the DATASCOPE University. I don't want to take Adrian's thunder there, but that is absolutely key to your business and our business going forward, because it takes a lot of the stuff that you don't get to do, you can now do online. They are well presented videos, they're well presented presentations. A lot of our Zoom sessions we've recorded, so we've got video, we've got very nice questions that go through, and it's really, really an excellent platform to get the skills transferred to your team as quick as possible. Specialized skills per champion, which I touched on. On-site and off-site software support. So again, just touching on the way that we manage our stuff with Zoom. You don't have to be on your site to manage your site. We can do that remotely, and that has worked very, very well. Value adds that we offer, we do have weekend stock counts. We can have people remote, or we can have people on your site for your weekend stock counts. There is a place on the portal to log that. Our portal allows you to log hardware repairs, any WMS upgrades that you need. You can use your agreements for user training or super user training. And another big value add that we've got is what we call our black box. And that is software that we'll put on your server that will monitor your environment, and that we offer to all our support contract customers. And that will monitor your environment on a regular basis. So it will manage your CPU, it will be monitoring your CPU usage of your CISPRO box, of your SQL box. It will be doing ping tests to scanners to see that we're getting connectivity all the time. It will monitor your network traffic to look at that. It looks at your SQL to see if you're getting any timeouts or what your resources are like in the SQL box. So when you get to a situation where your systems are slow at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's every afternoon, we can go back and look at history and try and understand what was going on. Now, your SQL box is using a lot of resources, or it was dropping packets at a certain time of the day, then we can isolate problems before they happen. Because generally, systems are fine until you get your peak period. That's when all the bugbears come out. When we need to try and prevent this before it happens, or at least help you to be aware of your systems before they become problematic. Thanks, Adrian. That's it from my side. We're going to jump onto Adrian. Adrian's going to discuss the portal with us. I don't know, most of you would have received emails this week regarding the portal. I hope everybody can start using it. Any questions on the support team before we hand over to Adrian? Great, thank you. Thanks, Adrian.
Hi everybody, good afternoon. I hope you don't mind me presenting from here. I'm going to drive while I'm busy. I don't see myself quite as eloquent as Anton and Terry and the rest. I'm normally more sort of background, just making sure things are working. I'm going to chat about 2 of my pet projects. These are things that I'm quite passionate about, that I've been tasked with over the last few years, and things that have become really integral to DATASCOPE and who we are. The first one is the support portal. The support portal has been around for quite a while, and this came about probably around 8 years ago. Amy was a big part of this, and in the discussions with Amy, what we decided was that we really needed a way for customers to interact with us in a way where we could trace what was happening, keep track of the calls, and also respond quite quickly. So the portal is bolt on to our existing system, our billing system, and what it allowed us to do was build a series of dashboards that when a call is logged, we can see those calls coming in, and we can manage those quite quickly. So we assign them to a site champion and everything through this portal. The reason for the new portal was that obviously the software had dated somewhat. It wasn't tablet or touch friendly. The menus were a little bit awkward. So we decided to really just brush that up and in line with our software, make it look and feel like a proper DATASCOPE product. The URL is now support.datascope.ms.com. Soon we will be launching from the original URL, so we need to push everyone to the new beta version. There is a very, very nice feature, which is the dashboard. So this is one of the big drivers, was giving not only the customers, but also internally a dashboard where you could drive everything from. So on that dashboard, you can see your contract hours at a glance, you can see your next upgrade that you've booked, all of your calls are there, and what's very, very nice is that you can rate those calls from that dashboard. So whereas before you got sent a little email that you had to open an attachment, and it was quite an effort to actually rate it, now it's far, far quicker. And what we're really hoping is that we can drive people to give us that feedback so that we can use that in a constructive way to build up DATASCOPE support. So you can see on our rating system, it's really simple. It's a matter of clicking the number of stars, a little slider. There is a mandatory little comment that you can put in, and as soon as you post that, it updates and it'll drop off the dashboard, so it won't bother you anymore. You will be emailed also on closing the call, the full summary of the call. That's the one thing that we found was a bit problematic in the previous system, was that the call updates didn't have a lot of detail in them. So you had to go to the system to open it up to go and dig for that full detail. Now it's there in the email. And yeah, that's basically number one done, the support portal. I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
I'm not accepting emails for looking at tickets.
We do prefer it to come straight on, because it, particularly if you email a specific support consultant, they might not be in the office. We could possibly in future look at integrating, like you say, an email to call straight into the call logging system. But I've personally never seen that work really well. You kind of get millions of calls logged and kind of gets lost. So we haven't done it as of yet.
But to answer your question, we need the calls logged on our portal for us to respond. And that's only way we want to. So even if you email somebody, they will then load that call. Find what we are if we had. But we do encourage all our clients to log in.
I just find it very easy. Someone, because most of the guys that have issues forwarding it to a software, the email address, and then log the ticket into a system. Very much easier than sometimes going through the portal.
Yeah, so the process is normally on your site is to have a super user, and that super user will normally manage those calls. Otherwise, you're going to get everybody in the warehouse that's going to be emailing left, right, and center. That's going to just utilize most of your hours on the contract very quickly. So if we can engage with them, just understand exactly what your requirements are. And sure, we train the office, but it's easy to start.
Will the new portal accept
you can copy and paste into, it is a rich text format that it accepts. So if you've got HTML formatted text, it'll put that in tables and bold, etc. I think for images, you do have to attach them, but you can embed images in that as well, which is quite a nice feature.
The email on the portal on the board. Do that directly on the board. Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to move along to the next one, which is our DATASCOPE University, or DSU. This is a very exciting one. This one we've built over quite a lot of time and spent a lot of effort on this. So the first thing that I really want to point out is that this is a value add to you, our customers. This, although it's not going to train you in extreme depth the same way, and we don't expect that it's going to negate the need for one-on-one training or that personal touch, it gives a very good grounding to the DATASCOPE software. So I'll go into what is covered, but it gives a very good background knowledge of DATASCOPE and what we do and who we are in our software. The point of the whole DSU was not only to train our DATASCOPE service providers and bring them up to speed quite quickly, but also for our own internal staff as well as the customers. So if you'd like to register, you can drop me an email and we can register you and you can have a look. You don't have to do all of the courses. It is broken into courses and modules. What is also nice about it is that you don't have to do everything in one go. Then we try to keep it into nice or manageable chunks. So you can do a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow, and it's not really a massive time problem. The outcome of this, we hope, is certification. So at the end of doing your course, you get certified for that module, and you print out a nice certificate. And it's just a really nice motivator as well to say, look, you've put in the hard work, you've qualified in this area, and you kind of know what's going on in that area. Another point on the DATASCOPE University is it's a repository for all sorts of knowledge that we've gathered over the years. It is searchable, which is quite nice, so you can go there and search for a topic. For example, if you put in picking, you can find maybe videos on picking or presentations on picking. We do report on progress, and obviously that's part of Ben's 5-star rating system. So we pull progress reports out of here on a regular basis, and those get fed into our integrated management process. Okay, yeah.
Sorry, that's live, obviously. So you've got to be online to work it. We can't say offline or something.
No, it is live, and that is obviously so that there is one up-to-date version. So if we roll out a new version, it's always up-to-date. It's also linked to YouTube for videos on demand. So, okay, so I thought to cover some of the courses, and then I'll go into a live demo and we can have a look at it together. The first one is the DATASCOPE Solution Provider module. That one was built for our partners or potential partners, and that just helps us explain what we expect from our partner. So it has quite a lot of detail on it, and it's based on a model that Ben and Anton spent a lot of time building. The next one is a really nice one for internal as well as our partners, and that's our project lifecycle. So once again, there the driver is to push that methodology and teach that methodology to our staff. DATASCOPE solution models. Those are predefined models that we've built. So what we found is that there's typical configurations that people use and that work very well. So we've put together a full explanation on how you would implement that and what that would cover. And that's what's covered in the solution models. Concepts, that's also quite a nice one. So that teaches broader concepts. Some of it's just plain warehousing. A lot of it is our own experience over the years that we've encapsulated into this course. And a lot of it is sort of prerequisite to using the software. So you kind of need to understand tracking IDs. You need to understand bin layouts and those types of concepts before we can really go into the detail of the software. DATASCOPE OMS functionality, that's quite a new one, and that's really a lovely video-driven module. So the aim there is to show our software, to reveal to you how to make best use of it. It covers
the majority of the software modules, and it goes through module by module. Software administration, that covers some of the more back-end stuff, more technical users. The same with hardware. We've got one on Vocalect that pulls in some of the experience of Stephen, particularly. Advanced hardware configurations, so that covers our internet printers, our CK3 scanners, and how those are configured and installed. Okay. A very nice one is managing for A-class warehouse, and this one is really of value to super users and users on the floor as well. And what that covers is how to really take your warehouse to the next level. So what we've seen is, in order to take your warehouse and bump it up a notch, you can use our software in many ways. That includes KPIs, balance reports, all of those daily things that you need to keep your warehouse in top condition. So that's detailed in that course. And then the next three are not static courses, they actually keep growing. And that's where we keep a lot of our videos that we've done, which explain advanced topics. So you can go into our project lifecycle that explains a little bit more on really detailed topics. So when you're sitting down with the client for a site visit, what are the things we need to go through? It's really useful internal information that we can centralize those. Software topics, that's also quite handy. This one is quite often when we roll out a new module, we want to explain that module. So things like the black box, which Terry mentioned, we have a video on there that explains that in some detail. And it just goes into a bit more detail on specific things. The last one is product updates. This is really, really nice. This is something that we've spent a lot of time on, and Javen in particular manages the process of putting together videos and detailed release notes for every version. So you can go and see what is coming up in the next versions, particularly prior to upgrades. You can go and see what's been enhanced in the software and see what sort of applies on your site and how you can best use it. I'm just going to launch into a demo quickly. One second. Okay, so here you can see the DATASCOPE University. The URL is datascopeuniversity.com. We've got a little bit of a launch video put together by Anton. What is quite nice is you've got this global search here, so you can search for topics and find those. What we generally recommend is that you enroll in one or more of these courses. So what we typically do is have a look at your role and decide which of those are the most applicable to you, and then go and enroll in those. If you take a look at how these are made up, so I'm just going to log in quickly. So for example, here you can see the project lifecycle. You can see that you can view at a glance how much more you need to do to complete that. So you can see there's activities, in this case 6 of 22 complete. And this can be made up of various things. So it could just be a document that you need to open and read. It could be PDFs that you can download for future reference. But we thought it was very important to make it as engaging as possible. So instead of just giving you reams and reams of reading, what we've tried to do is encapsulate this in a presentation format that is multimedia. Some of them have audio embedded. They have all sorts of different types of video and audio, and it just gives a quite a fun experience. For example, this one we based on sort of a comic book to explain the project lifecycle to our customers. We also, if I can go along to the functionality section, this is one that obviously is very applicable to our customers. Here you can see we cover all sorts of introductions to track ID, reprint, purchasing, module by module. You can go through and learn about the software. What is also quite nice is that on a number of these, you can download a certificate once you've done. It will only give you that once you complete, and you can print that and keep that. And then we also track this and keep the history. Any questions on the DATASCOPE University? No. Thank you very much for your time. Over to you, Amy.
Okay, so we're going to look at the KPIs. Sorry, that's my dashboard. So as Steve showed us earlier, we are launching our new HTML5 platform, and the main wow factor, I'm just trying to move these faces out the way. A main wow factor here is dashboards, because we know in the past that our current KPI module is good, and we have some good reports in there, but what we've battled is that we go to one site and they don't want this column there, and that takes up too much space, and these people want it viewed this way around, and it's quite difficult to make sure that everybody gets what they want and deploy it in time. So I'm sure a lot of you have been using DRS reporting, which is basically SSRS reporting from within DATASCOPE, which has also been useful, but the look and feel there is also quite limited. And it depends on the SQL Server version you're running, and it's a bit more difficult to deploy. So what we've realized is the bottom line is, as Terry mentioned, if you are not using the data, then it's a bit of a waste. And most of the sites that we've seen that use their data properly really skyrocket and really leverage the tool and the software correctly to run their businesses. So the better that we can monitor the data and the performance, the better the site can run. We went to go and look at a number of different tools as well to try and see, well, should we embed a different software in our product? We had a demonstration from Tableau. We spoke to Domo and a lot of those other tools that you can get, because it's quite the flavor of the month for people to have dashboards. But what we found is that a lot of those required you to upload your entire database to the cloud or to their server, which we know isn't always possible in South Africa because of internet speeds. And so a lot of people really aren't keen on that. There's a huge security risk that we just weren't comfortable with. So we decided rather to embark on our own tool, which we can sort of see a beta version of running here. And the concept there is that the software would deploy with a number of standard KPI reports that we would have written, and then you can copy those away, much like Steve was explaining with the HTML5 screens, and tailor them yourselves. Or you could get a support consultant on site to write you a whole new one. So what I can show you what it looks like here is, that's just an example welcome dashboard. Then we can do dashboards and with different graphs. And if you look at this on your QR, using the QR reader that Steve, or the QR code that Steve supplied earlier on your phone, you'll see that we can rotate graphs on the screen. So as the screen loads, it moves round and round and round. It's not working too well on my screen here, but you'll see it on your phone. And you can see this is the same data represented differently in different graphs. So we can apply different graphs. It doesn't really matter, whatever you want. So we can do a different KPI. Then I've got a couple more here. So if we look at, say, packing stats, I can also have interactive graphs where I go and select a to and from date. So this is more what you'd want to look at. Okay, well, who's done the majority of my packing things? And if I want to change it up to a column, I can do that. So those would be the custom ones that, or the standard ones that ship with the product that would replace our existing KPI module. And then on top of that, you can go and create your own new one. Is there a plane going over there? No? Okay, just feedback. So I'm going to show you quickly how quickly and easily you can create your own new report. So there I just went to design and to a new form. And now I can come here and say, add a row, so add 50 by 50 rows. I can rename it. I move this down. I right click. I say add chart. Go in here. I can say the chart is now for demo for the customer day, not with an E on the end. And all of these are based off stored proc. So I could put in my own custom stored procedure here. And a stored procedure is basically just a SQL query. So that's not too tricky for most of us to write. Put on your box and then go and select it from the list or name it here. I'm going to show you what it looks like on a Pixlip report here. I'd choose my report type. So I'm going to say I want a bar chart. And that is more or less what my chart is all of a sudden done. I can also add different options. So I can add something called a card. And again, here, this can be linked to stored proc. So let's say I've written a report for pick slips older than 2 days, and I want to be showing the numbers there. Then I can start designing my screen as I go and save the page. So this is more or less the route that we are wanting to go for KPIs. And I'm sure that some people will be happy to know that we're looking to try and launch this with a site and kind of get a feel for it and look for a guinea pig, so to say, to work with them and put it on their site and sort of trial it out like a candidate version, like Cicero would. But as you can see, it's pretty quick and easy as long as you've got the stored proc, which we're building up a base of, we've probably got about 10 now, and we just keep writing them and then adding it to different dashboards, which you could see on any device that you run. So things like pick a stats for replay and all this sort of stuff. You can choose what graph you want to show. So that is KPIs.
Just one extra point just on that is you can create your own dashboard. You can add those graphs onto your particular profile. And then we have an option to allow you to automatically move those graphs around. So for instance, if you go and put a big screen up in your warehouse, you can give it its own profile. You can put 6 graphs in there or 10 graphs in there. And then you can make your graphs sort of focus every, let's say, 15 seconds. So every 15 seconds, let's say the first one is your picking stats. And 15 seconds later, that drops down and your checker stats come up. And then that drops down, and then maybe your receiving stats or number of pallets waiting in your receiving bin that haven't yet been moved away. So you can make the thing move around as you want, which is also quite cool. Right, Adrian, can you just knock to the next slide, please? And let's just click through it. Just go right through until it's at the end. I want to just talk through the slide here. So just to talk through this slide very briefly, without going into too much detail, this is just a little bit of background as to how the development goes into the software. We start with a 3-year roadmap at the top, which breaks down into a quarterly roadmap. From there, that breaks down into what we call a sprint. That's a development segment, which the development team will actually produce. And that falls down into that Azure DevOps 3-week sprint. So every time we're doing a development, the original roadmap breaks down to a spec. The spec then goes into a 3-weekly sprint. The sprint then goes into development. Those light blue sections at the bottom just show what happens on a daily basis. So every day, the developers come in the morning, they develop whatever they're working on. Early afternoon, they rebuild the code. So they check in the pieces that they've developed, and they build that code back in. And then that gets deployed for testing. Our tester, as we mentioned earlier, actually sits in Kentucky. It's Javen. Javen worked for us for many years. He's worked for DATASCOPE for, I think, 10 years now. And he does all the testing. It actually works really well because the developers come in South African time, hand across to him in the afternoon. He tests into their night. And the following morning, that all the developers arrive, they have the feedback, and they continue the development cycle. From there, we have released a version. So a new version comes out every 3 weeks, and then that goes into release notes, and we put out the detailed release notes with some videos and stuff on the latest stuff that's gone into the software. Let's move on. Okay, just how do we do the roadmap? This is typically what the roadmap looks like. It's a Trello board. Any sort of long-term things that we want to build into the software go in like this. If it goes green, it means it's done. If it's yellow, it's a big hitter. It's a substantial piece of software that we're wanting to build. If you look at it, we've got different sort of queues. So that's Q1, Q1 this year, Q2, Q3, we're busy with at the moment. That's what we're looking for at Q4. And I'll talk through some of the upcoming development now, but just to understand how we manage this. We can move on. All right, so back to here. Just next slide. Okay, once from the roadmap that breaks down into the actual development sprint. This is just one screen of the tool that we use internally to manage who's working on what. So every single little piece of software that we're busy with has got an EREF number against it. It's allocated to a developer. The developer works on it, and behind each one of those little cards, they keep a detailed record of everything that happens on that actual development. And that goes between the developer and the tester and backwards and forwards. So we can kind of monitor them. We've got timing against them. And this helps us in a daily sprint meeting just to be on top of all the development and make sure that we bring in these enhancement references out in time. Next one. Okay, we'll go on. All right, just something to touch on here. At the end of each development cycle, we are doing detailed release notes, and we're doing detailed videos of substantial changes in the software. This exists on the DSU, on the DATASCOPE University, but I think it's important. I just want to touch on it now because you guys do have access to the DATASCOPE University, and that allows you to actually go and look at every release that's out there, look at the release notes, read them through, and actually go and watch some of the videos. So a lot of effort has been put into these things so that we share, as the product grows, we're actually sharing that information on a portal type environment in a training in the university. Next slide, Adrian. So just typically, how does those sort of things look like? So the release notes on the side here, a typical Word type document. It's a PDF when you download it, but it will have absolute detail of what we did, why we've done it, the breakdown of the request, what we were trying to achieve with that change in the software, and then how the software works with screen dumps and so on. And then if you look on the sort of the side here, there's a little video that's showing the actual little video. So if it's a small change in the Word document, you'd have a whole lot of changes for that version. Some of those changes might be very, very small, so it's just in the document. But as soon as it's a slightly bigger change, we actually video it. We explain with the software open. We explain what we did, why we did it, and how it works, and that actually goes into the video. So any of the bigger changes that are coming out there, you can actually go and watch those videos and get a good understanding of what that change is, and you can go and implement it yourself.
Let's just introduce Lotus. So we've got Lotus, you ready? I'm not sure in the deep end. So Lotus is from ARF Africa, and we've just asked him to just had a very short presentation just to explain to you his experience on it, and then his experience with DATASCOPE, his experience of what his first impressions were a couple of years ago, and where they are today. And I'm going to open the floor after that to anybody else who's got any feedback, positive or negative, that they would like to share with anybody else as well. I'm brave. Over to Lawrence, thank you.
Okay, right. Yeah, thank you very much, Terry. Appreciate the opportunity. Started with Bayer a few years ago, then still known as Metro Clock. Not very impressed when I heard that we running DATASCOPE. No offense, guys, but I didn't know the product. We started off fairly small, and as I got to know the company a bit better and I started getting to know the functionality, we're actually doing quite well. You might just popping 2 or 3 forward. Well, basically, yeah, just we carry around 200 million rands worth of inventory. We supply out of 3 central facilities. Texarico, the old Metro Clock is now by a Rev. and the old Eurocool also now trading as Bayer. We supply around about 54 branches in South Africa, 15 throughout Africa, and then also the manufacturing facilities. So it's obviously important for us to have a 100% accuracy and get the right stuff to the right place and all those type of things. I'm not going to hold you up, so yeah, no. Just actually we can. Just on the progress to date, implementation of the shipping module, increase efficiency, provided labels, strip sheets, labels, etc. Highly recommend it. The initial stage is obviously very much involved with the drive and our requirements and all those type of things, but it really added a lot of value to our life. ESV and Cargo is integrating it into their system, so they're now making use of our labels, etc., etc. So it's really working for us. The go live was about 4 months ago. The first 2-3 weeks was very slow, but we did the guys got used to it, and it actually is now reducing time. So we no longer will go into overtime because of the system. It's reducing and it's got efficiencies. We've set up the system for our volumetrics, for example, so your length width height. The factors work in and then the division by 5,000, so we get our actual distribution cost up front. So we've got no nasty little surprises at that thing. Okay, just what can I keep you? These type of things, okay, let's just, actually go through it. See how this one works. So I'll just update it. We can go through this. Okay, this is us a few years ago. Implementation April 2016. We had a loss of 763,000 Rand. July we gained some back, 180. At the moment we're sitting in September 2018 at a 2,200 Rand variance on a 200 million Rand inventory. So as you can see, we're obviously making use of the system. We're not perfect, we're far from perfect, but we will get there. We'll get to the 100% mark. Number of supply chain queries. So effectively, what we do is we measure all the queries, incorrect dispatches, etc., etc. In 2016, we had an average of 33.58 per month. 2017, 14.17. At the moment, we're sitting at 12.78 queries per month. So out of the branches that we service, 12.78 queries a month, and that's on damage stock, short deliveries, over deliveries, colors wrong, all sorts of nonsense like that. So we are really getting to the nitty-gritty of actually getting it resolved, and we wouldn't have been there was not the WMS system we're currently using. That's good. Line accuracy, July 2016, 96.10. Current line accuracy in September, that was last week, Friday's figure, 99.47%. So I think we've stabilized. I don't think we're going to get much better than that. If you get much better than that, you're going to be, then somebody's cooking the books. So, we can go through the next one. And this is stock down durations. Again, we've flattened the line. This is on, we've got 5 warehouses, 5 receiving warehouses. This is on about 30,000 SKUs. About 30,000 SKUs. So it's a fair number. So we're doing it in 1.5 days, 12 hours. So it takes us, it's 12 hours. It effectively takes us as 1 8-hour day and a few hours overtime. And I think that's it, sorry.
And we balance all
that's including the balancing recounts and all those little funnies that you get. Some idiot who didn't invoice something or went outside of the system, that's true. And that's it. Thank you very much. So, well done. Kudos. Anton and Ben, I've just got something for them as well. Are they still online?
Yeah.
Okay, just one thing. I had a meeting with Tiffany, and I think there was what do you call it, a daily sprint.
Yeah.
Implementation of the DD warehouse within 4 days, they couldn't deliver, so that's a fail. They did it in 3 weeks, but and nice positive growth. I trust we will get a reduction in our license fees.
Just because you presented, we're going to make a plan for you. Guys, just one other thing. Trevor, you mentioned something in the break about monitoring checkers as well as pickers. Would you be willing to just tell the guys there what you're doing there?
Yeah, we went from 22 pickers on our old system when we first went live, and then we implemented a pay-per-pick rate, and we got it down to 12 pickers. So we do a lot of picks a day, probably 2,500 picks a day, and then when that was a success, we turned into a pay-per-checkout. So we're using line mass checkout. So the theory being, if you got to pick it, you got to check it out. So we went from 12 checkouts to 8 at the same rate. So we pay the same rate for a pick as a checkout. It's about 272.
Cool.
Some guys are earning $5,000 a week.
Yeah, so just interesting, guys, that Trevor's using the data that we track anyway, which is in your systems and you're tracking it. It's there anyway. He's just using that data to be able to actually turn it into a pay by pick and pay by check. So people actually earn based on what they do.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything? Gustav, do you want to share your experience?
Yeah, so we are from Ascendus Medical. So we were about, our stock holding is about $500 million worth of stock. We just a little bit bigger. We passed Johnson & Johnson as the biggest medical company in South Africa this year. So we're quite substantial, but we did add a lot of acquisitions, and with those acquisitions came absolutely massive issues. When you do the due diligence, you don't do due diligence and processes and procedures. So we've got absolute huge stock issues. And what WMS we've implemented, we're very new. We're 4 weeks. 4 weeks into it. But from an Ascendus Health perspective, we run companies like Swell, those guys. We're looking at WMS to deploy it right through the group. And I met with our CEO yesterday, and he said to me, "What is the biggest advantage of WMS?" I said, "Well, at this point in time, it's pointing out all our issues. We're just picking up problems everywhere. And our receiving department is taking 2 weeks solid of my time just to pick up where the issues are. So it's almost like entering the Iron Man and halfway through, you've got to turn back. You've got to go and push through. But yeah, it's been a journey and it's been very positive. So we've had a fantastic experience. Rudolph has been great. Julia has been absolutely fantastic. So a positive experience so far, but still a long way to go.
Thank you very much.
Terry, can I just present this one last slide, which seemed to have fallen out of the pack somewhere along the way? I just wanted to get a bit of a feel, guys, of kind of sort of what we've done over the last 2 years, what we're busy with at the moment in terms of clients, broken down into North America, South Africa, and into Australia, just to keep you sort of in the loop. In the North American market, this is over the last 2 years, including some of the implementations that are currently running at the moment. So all of these companies have been implemented within the last 2 years, or are busy being implemented at the moment. These are obviously all North American companies, and we've got everything there from kitchen utensil distribution centers to Summer Classics, which is furniture. So that's a big furniture distribution center. WR Meadows in the middle there, that's a manufacturer of various components for the construction industry. We've got right at the top, Cambly, which is armored vehicles. Now, you would think that all armored vehicles would be made in South Africa, but actually, they do make some here, and that's actually in Canada. Savian, quite an interesting one, they make drum cymbals. It's one of the sort of top cymbal brands worldwide. very interesting company right up in the mountains in Canada. Very highly skilled workforce that make these things. So quite a nice wide range there. The one in the middle there, Natural Factors, is Syspro Canada's largest Syspro site. It's a 200 user site of Syspro. We're doing their first manufacturing facility at the moment. And then there's another 5 that will roll out thereafter. So that's a little bit of what's happening in North America. On the South African front, also in the last 2 years, these are kind of the new brands or new companies that have sort of come on board. We've got Parkwip there. That was a very big implementation last year. Taurus, they make paper bags. So, if you go and buy some sugar or cement or something like that, it comes in that paper bag. That's what they manufacture. Big plant, big manufacturing plant. Freedom Stationers, also very big, both manufacturing and distribution of stationery supplies. Ascendus, which we just talked about now with Gustav. Baja, we just had a presentation there from them. Select PPE is a new one we're busy working with at the moment, and Fresenius Carb is also a new one that we're busy implementing at the moment. So that's some of the activity currently on the South African front. And then we are busy with our first implementation in Australia. This project has been delayed a little bit. It was due to go live last year. Then they made the decision to upgrade Syspro first. That took a lot longer than they expected. But they're up at Syspro 7 now, and that go live is in October. So that will be our first site on that side. So I just want to get a little bit of a feel for the kind of clients that are coming on board and kind of the activity in the last 2 years. Our focus will obviously continue to be predominantly in South Africa and in the North American markets. The Australian side will grow slowly, I think more sort of as companies specifically ask us to get involved. But our core focus is South Africa and North America. I just wanted to share that with you, that you kind of get a picture of what we're doing. It's good to know these things, because every time one of these comes on, we are able to put more people in place. We're able to improve the development team. We've already invested heavily in the development team. We've got a very strong group of guys on our development team. And obviously this whole sort of focus is driving into that. So I just wanted to share that with you. I won't go into any other slides, just that one.
So thank you, Anton. That pretty much brings us to the end of the day. So we're just going to do the draw quickly for the annual prize that we're going to hand over.
Except for the wine and beer afterwards.
And then, of course, we've got some more stacks and some drinks. There's some wines, there's some beers. And I really encourage you to all stay around. Let's have a bit of a chat. I'm hoping that we'll have the voice speaking demo available by now. So that is planned to now be live system. It was just the system has to get that running. So anyone that would like to see that, and please I encourage you to all stay and have a couple of drinks with us. And thank you very much for the afternoon. And who are we going to?
You're going to show you.
Who are we going to put out?
I mean, it's how you roll it.
I wouldn't tell them to go.
You got cards with me, so we said.
I got you. Didn't take my eye in.
Yeah, just
Terry, Terry, if he pulls his own card, he's going to have to put it back, eh?
NSS Fosters.
Yes!
Should I say you?
It is a brand new device, and it wasn't available for the show today, so that's about.
Well, it's there.
You can see it, but it's
Yeah,
not
it's
showing.
a new one. Yeah, it's an ordered one specifically for the day. It just hasn't arrived in time. It's a random device as well, so it's widely.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well, definitely.
So it's Android. Yes, yes.
So you can run out
And walk some liquid later.
Trust me, we'll try.
I don't know if there's any other questions anybody's got before we move on down to the warehouse. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I told you, it's hard out.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the day. I really appreciate it. Please join us for some drinks and some snacks.
Amy, Ben, Anton, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Sorry you can't join us.
Sure.
And
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Yeah, it's not the end of our day, so we can't have a beer yet.
Now, there's no goals on.
Will the brand DATASCOPE now?